Sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, Pete Carroll.
The sport will never, ever be the same because of what has transpired over the past 24 hours. 3 all-time greats. Moving aside.
Think about the Patriots and I'll always be a Patriot.
Patriots!
He's got a cold, so I'm not going to kiss him.
This ain't the Villages!
This wild card matchup against the Steelers.
The weather can be the ultimate equalizer, and I don't like that.
Mike Danger.
I think we would all love if the Bills do to the Steelers similarly what they did to the Patriots a couple of seasons ago, right? Like, we want that perfect game. We expect that perfect game against what is perceived to be an inferior opponent.
Gene Battaglia.
I look at the weather and I look at the special teams. And certainly the turnovers. The Bills will turn it over. You got to figure once or twice. But if the Bills are going to lose a game, how would I describe it? Snow band and a special teams play.
Here come the Buffalo Sabres!
All right, good morning to you, and thanks for listening to the Sports Bar.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Good morning, Gene. Welcome into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us and listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950. The free to download Odyssey app. You can check out the video stream at The Fan Rochester on YouTube, at The Fan Rochester on Twitch. You get us on your smart device as well when you just ask it simply to play 95.7 The Fan. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
I like mutual parting of ways. That's the new euphemism, I guess we have to say, rather than, hey, you know what, we didn't want them around.
Conscious uncoupling was my favorite. When it was, who was that? Gwyneth Paltrow and the singer from Coldplay. When they divorced or when they broke up, it was a conscious uncoupling. How nice that these teams can now mutually part ways. It's the end of an era, and I don't know, man. I mean, this week feels fairly significant when you talk about some of what's happened in the NFL and in the game of football, with Saban stepping down, with Carroll stepping down, and now Belichick parting ways with the New England Patriots.
Well, these, just on the surface level, these are 3 men in their 70s. This is when normally most people wind it down, okay? You've accomplished what you wanted to in life. You've made your money, and now is the time to, enjoy the fruits of your labor, so to speak. Each one feels a little different to me. It feels like Belichick isn't done. Yesterday when we were talking about Pete Carroll, you read into it a little more. No, that really wasn't his decision. He still wants to go, and I wonder if he'll end up somewhere else. And as far as Nick Saban, and we said this yesterday, the analogy I draw to is Roy Williams, Jay Wright, Coach K, men in college basketball who... Really, that is a different animal, college basketball, than when it was before. Well, I don't want to deal with this NIL stuff. I'm out. Was that it with Nick Saban?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, you've had long, sustained, and successful careers, and you don't really feel the need to have to continue to adapt or to reprove yourself year after year when the expectation stays the same and the environment around you is continuously changing. You can just ride off into the sunset. Totally fine with that. Totally fine with it. I mean, it is changing. He's not wrong. NIL is changing everything. And if you're Nick Saban, a guy who has, pride himself on not just the national championships, but recruiting the best players, getting those players to the NFL at a record rate, that's out of your control now more than ever. You used to be able to just go into a living room, flash your rings. You want to play for the best? You're coming to Alabama.
And if you don't like sitting a year or two, well, too bad. You're going to have to wait another year before you go somewhere else, and that's changed too.
Right. So that pitch is dated, and now it really is. And I imagine that kids and their families, these prospects, these recruits, they're probably only thinking about who's giving us the most. Where can we get the most bang for our buck? Where can we get the most money for starting at quarterback? And it's less about the program. It's become more about the money. It's a business. That's what it's always been. So I understand if there's a frustration there that what you
took pride in, the job that you did in going in and getting these recruits to sign with your program is kind of out of your hands now. Hey, take solace in the fact that you're the best. Like Saban, you can walk off saying, I did it all. And the report was that he was interviewing assistant coaches just moments before he finally said, you know what, I'm going to walk away. I wonder what conversation led to him ultimately. What was the straw that broke Saban's back?
Yeah, I'm going to give him credit, though. I'm giving Nick Saban credit. He could have easily put the spotlight on himself, but he didn't do that. He lost to Michigan, and last week wasn't about Nick Saban and Alabama. Had he announced that last week, I think I would have been a little bit in bad form. Like, let the spotlight be on the national championship game for those. Last week, we would have been talking completely about Nick Saban and what's next and who should take his job and the carousel and da-da-da-da-da. So, for the betterment of the sport, I'm happy that he gave this a half beat. And I'm also curious that Bill Belichick, they gave it a half beat, sort of like they waited until today, till Thursday, to announce this. And we'll get into this. There are a few destinations I would love to see Bill Belichick wind up in.
This was Bill Belichick earlier.
Robert and I, after a series of discussions, have mutually agreed to part ways. And for me, this is a day of gratitude and celebration. Start with Robert and his family. It's great. So much thanks for the opportunity to be head coach here for 24 years. It's an amazing opportunity. Received tremendous support. We had a vision of building a winner, building a championship football team here, and that's exceeded my wildest dreams and expectations. The amount of success that we were able to achieve together, through a lot of hard work and contributions of so many people. So I'm very proud of that, and I always have those great memories. I'll carry with those with me the rest of my life.
Robert Kraft also addressed the media after Belichick, and it's very clear Belichick wants to continue coaching. Kraft expects to see Belichick to continue coaching. They exited their little press conference there without opening it up to questions. Belichick actually sounding a little bit lighter than normal, like a weight has been taken off of his chest. I think he even cracked a joke starting. I haven't seen this many cameras since we signed Tebow. Not bad. Not bad.
It's the thing. He's actually a charming, engaging guy from, you hear various reports, and when he gets up there at the podium and it's game week, he wants nothing of your stupid football questions. That's kind of his MO. Yeah, we expect him, and that's good on Kraft. Good on the Patriots organization not to hold him hostage for some draft pick. I mean, gosh, the guy gave you 6 championships. Let him go choose his next job rather than be traded to Washington. Danger, I don't want to see him in Washington. I don't want to see him in Atlanta. I know they want him. I certainly don't want to see him in Carolina or the Chargers. What's interesting to me is he going to end up somewhere that right now they have a head coach and they don't have a vacancy?
That's right. Yes. I would say if you're Bill Belichick, the last place you're going to go to is a team that has work to do. A team that is right now scrambling to try and figure out how they're going to get into the postseason. No, if you're a postseason team right now, look at who you have as your head coach and ask yourself the question, would Bill Belichick be an upgrade? And I think there's a lot of teams that could say, yeah, Bill Belichick could be an upgrade. Look at the Monday night matchup. We kind of plug our nose thinking about having to watch that game between Philadelphia and Tampa. One coach got his team to the Super Bowl last year, now finds himself on the hot seat. Another one, Todd Bowles, is just like a really good defensive mind, but maybe not a great head coach. Either one of those teams, whoever loses that game, especially if it's Philadelphia, if you see Philadelphia lose to Tampa, it's Howie Roseman reaching out to Bill Belichick saying, hey, I got everything you want, man.
I'm sure he's already done it through back channels. Yeah. I'm sure Belichick is looking at that situation. I'm sure if you're an Eagle fan, are you hate watching Monday night? I'm being honest. Like, if it starts to go south, you know what? Let's get somebody else in here, because Nick Sirianni, we said this when he was hired. We called him Section 5 Sirianni. He comes off as the I'll fake it until I'll make it guy. And now without coordinators and everything else, they have turned on him in Philadelphia, and they have moved on from coaches very quickly. So if you're an Eagle fan, are you allowing yourself to think Bill Belichick in the NFC East with your new head coach being the all-time great?
As much as we like to think about that, the one that's more compelling and the one that I think could actually be more likely to happen, if Dallas loses to Green Bay.
Well, that's a stretch, I think.
Now, if Dallas loses to Green Bay, you've got everything you need if you're Jerry Jones to move in on Mike McCarthy. Thanks, we're moving on. Bill Belichick, come on down. Belichick and the Joneses have always spoke very highly of each other. They have a good relationship. You have a feeling that they would respect each other's space, that they would work well together, as well as a meddling owner like Jerry Jones could work with Bill Belichick. I think Belichick probably knows how to manage through that. And again, you've got all the pieces that you would want. You don't have to go into a situation, look for a quarterback, rebuild a roster. Dallas has a team that, has enough talent to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's why I see him going to number one. Belichick loves his history. He's going to not only a team that can win next year, but kind of an established franchise too. And that's why I'm going to rule out the Chargers here. The Chargers, yes, they have the quarterback, and that gives them an advantage. And yes, they spend to the cap so much so that, kind of got them into cap problems, but everything else that you need in an organization, things that are off the books, have nothing to do with the salary cap. Is that next head coach going to be given those resources? I don't want to see Bill Belichick with the Chargers.
Now, the wild card here, and the thing that we don't know, is if it's about the money. If it's all about the money, then yeah, one of these kind of scrub teams could say to Bill Belichick, here, whatever you want, write your own check. And we want you here to, build up that hope. But I have a feeling with Belichick that record matters, that he wants that record, that he wants to go down as the winningest coach of all time. And if that's the case, that pathway happens a lot quicker if you go to a team that right now is gearing up to play in the postseason. So a couple of interesting things to think about with Bill Belichick and what might be next for him. And then what might be next for the Patriots, Gino?
Yeah. I mean, if it were about the money, has Bill Belichick ever done an endorsement?
I don't know.
I don't think so. Like Andy Reid is doing auto commercials now.
Was he in a Subway commercial with Brady one year or something like that?
Maybe.
I feel like there was maybe Belichick in a Subway commercial.
Well, there's the point is there's been opportunities for him to make money, which he's passed on because does that have anything to do with football? So, my fear is, my gosh, like somebody's going to write him that big check, and it's too hard to pass up. But I don't think my fear is actually valid. I don't think he does that, Danger. I hope I'm wrong on that.
We've got a great show lined up for you, and we'll talk to the best and brightest more on this story, of course, the big story of the day here, Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots after a 24-year run parting ways. We will be joined in the 4 o'clock hour by our 2023 Take of the Year winner, host of Maggie and Perloff Mornings here on the Fan Rochester. Rochester's own Maggie Gray joins us from New York City at 4:25.
All right, to be clear, she's actually from Binghamton, which close enough.
She's ours.
She married a Rochester guy. And now she is your morning co-host on Maggie and Perloff. And she's got great takes. And also she's a big, big Buffalo Bills fan. And if you're not familiar with her takes, she came on with us in October. In October, you won over the Giants. You beat the Buccaneers. You had a terrible loss to the Patriots. And we're wondering, where is this team kind of going? And you're wondering, oh my gosh, is the window actually closing? And Maggie, as she can only do in 20 seconds, really kind of summed up our worst fear.
Is it mental? Man, I hope not. Because if it is, that means that solidifies probably something that maybe Bills fans and maybe the organization doesn't want to face, which is the 13 seconds game might have been the best shot. And I'm not willing to say yet that they're not going to have another great shot at this and that they're not going to have learned from those mistakes in that game and can be better for it. I'm not giving up. This hasn't beaten me down yet. Hell, we're Bills fans. We've been through worse. And I think if a few things can break right and they can start peaking at the right time at the end of the season, why not the Bills, really? I mean, we have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. We still have a great defense despite some of the injuries. I'm saying we now, like I'm suiting up for the team. But I'm still with this team.
Take of the year.
She won, yeah.
Take of the year. Which was fantastic.
Yeah, like here's your fear, here's the hope. And so far came true.
Yeah, that was back in, when was that? Was that in October?
It was in October.
Yeah.
That was before the Denver game,
Oh
before the Philadelphia game.
Yeah.
Like there would be more bad news before we got to this 5-game winning streak.
Yeah, Maggie joins us at 4:25. You can hear her every morning. Maggie and Perloff here on the Fan Rochester, joining us here in about 10-15 minutes from our Odyssey Sports sister station 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. Chris Mack stops by the sports bar.
All right, so yes, the Steelers made the postseason. They defeated Baltimore twice. They're going to try to ugly this game up. You just can't say advance Buffalo, check here, move on to the next round. No, like the Steelers are coming up here trying to win a football game. So we'll explore that possibility. One of the questions I'm curious to ask him, wait a second, why is Kenny Pickett still listed as the number one on the depth chart, yet it is Mason Rudolph, actually?
I could make the argument, and we'll talk about this in a few with Chris Mack when he joins us, that these two teams this season are extremely similar. In fact, the Bills being double-digit favorites doesn't compute with me. You have a lot of the same storylines happening, save for the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. Move the offensive coordinator mid-season. Head coach needs to be on the hot seat. This is unacceptable. These losses to teams you should be beating. These are the same storylines that Pittsburgh was talking about, that we were talking about a lot of times throughout the course of this season with the Buffalo Bills. The biggest difference here, again, the fact that one team has Josh Allen, one team does not. So there really aren't, in my opinion, any excuses for the Bills to lose this game, but I do think that these two teams are very similar going into this game.
Well, do we trust AccuWeather? Let me just read this story. Blizzard in Buffalo. Brutal weather expected as playoff football game kicks off. Snow so heavy it could bury the field. Temperatures so low, the beer will freeze. These are just some of the conditions expected. The worst weather we've ever seen for the opening weekend of the playoffs. Now, the beer freezing, that's out in Kansas City. And I just say this. Yes, that's the headline. That's the stuff you'll read. You explain to me. And I'm not a weather guy. I am not Count Hesko. Okay, Count Hesko can come here in a second. Why
no.
not? Yes, you are absolutely correct, Gene.
Count Hetzko.
We could have potentially 10, 11, 12 inches of snow.
Bring it. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, thank you, Count. Can you tell me where that band's going to set up? Basically, this headline is kind of playing off of the Colts game, and you can end up with nothing. So, yeah, the fear is danger, though. If you get that, I'm with you on this. I think the Bills win, and we'll have our official predictions tomorrow. Hard for me to lay points in this game. Really hard for me to lay points.
Yeah. I just look at both teams and I just see them both being very kind of similar. And now you've got injuries and the defense for the Steelers that you've been dealing with all year. I mean, very similar paths to get to what one just happens to. One has a better quarterback and one happens to play in a tougher division. The Steelers play in a very, very tough division. The Bills have a better quarterback. But you take those two things aside, and these teams, to me, feel very, very similar. Similar coaches. They both want to be tough, physical teams, right? We want to run the ball, be smash mouth, blah, blah, blah. We got to move on from our offensive coordinator because he stinks. The head coach makes dumb decisions. We can't figure these head coaches, what are they doing? They both deserve to be on the hot. Like, there were so many things that were happening in Pittsburgh that also happened in Buffalo. One just happened to play in a tougher division, and one just happens to have a better quarterback.
Yeah, and Mike Tomlin, my gosh, he's going to, like Sean McDermott is not in this category. Never a losing season. Any Steeler fan that, hey, we got to move on. Okay, if you had the quarterback, which you do not have the quarterback, and I don't know if you fault Mike Tomlin for not having the quarterback or developing the quarterback, but he's doing what he can here. And they do have a running game. I think what will hurt them ultimately, though, is your main guy in defense is not going to be there. When the Steelers came in and won week 1, a couple of things happened in that game. 3 things I remember. The Bills tried to get cute. Do you remember that with the Daboll? That's number 3 on the reason. Number 2, there was the big special teams play. And that was
a block punt, right?
Yeah, that was a block punt. And you had TJ Watt running free. Like, oh my gosh, that's the defensive player of the year. In week 1, well, one of the 3 isn't going to happen this week with Watt running free. Special teams, sure, they won the game for the Buffalo Bills last week. I don't need you to win the game this week. I just need you not to lose it. Can we do that? No turnovers in that regard. By the way, Sam Martin, the AFC Special Teamer of the Month, named today.
Really?
Yeah. Which, again, that's my argument there. Oh, why not bring back the punt god? Because he's a punter. I'm sorry. It's a cold business.
Yeah.
The guy you brought in off the street was deemed the best in the conference.
I mark my words, Gino. Punt God will have his redemption. When he gets back in the NFL, he will be a difference maker. You wait and see. You haven't heard the last of Matt Araiza. Mark my words, you have not heard the last of Matt Araiza, the punt God. We'll see. Chris Mack joining us next in the Sports Bar. We'll check out what's going on there in Pittsburgh from our Odyssey Sports sister station, 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. Always love talking with Chris Mack, and we'll see what's new with the Steelers here in advance of Sunday afternoon. And that 1 o'clock kickoff in Orchard Park. You'll be able to hear the action on the Fan Rochester with our pregame coverage getting underway at 9 a.m. You know, as good as the regular season is, nothing like this weekend. NFL's Super Wild Card Weekend. It's my danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan. You've got 6 games over the stretch of 3 days, and for these teams, it's win or go home. You'll always have a spot in the playoffs with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. We were just talking about that Bills-Steelers spread. Really hard for me to give 10 points to the Bills there and hope that they can cover that with the elements in play and knowing how similar these teams are. If you want to follow my picks, go ahead and join FanDuel right now if you're a new customer. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/Mike to join today. That's FanDuel.com/MIKE. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Sports Update.
Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots announce a mutual parting of ways after 24 years. Belichick giving one last presser in New England.
Just so many fond memories and thoughts that I think about the Patriots, and I'll always be a Patriot. I look forward to coming back here, but at this time, we're gonna move on, and I look forward and excited for the future.
Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills back on the practice field this afternoon. Bills a 10-point favorite over Pittsburgh. We'll talk some Steelers coming up next. Chris Mack joining us here in the Sports Bar. Game 2 of a 6-game homestand tonight as the Sabres host Ottawa. Our coverage will begin at 7. Also out in the Buffalo region tonight, RIT hockey playing at Niagara. NBA in Paris, currently the Cavs leading Brooklyn by 20 at the half. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Top shelf sports talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
All right, you hear weekends on The Fan Rochester, part of the BetQL network and our Odyssey Sports sister station, 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. Always love catching up with our buddy Chris Mack as we get ready for Super Wildcard Weekend and a Bills-Steelers matchup coming up here on Sunday afternoon at 1. And Chris, I was saying before we went to break how both of these teams feel very, very similar in terms of what their seasons were like, with two main differences. One, the Bills have a quarterback, and two, the Steelers play in a much tougher division than the AFC East. How are you, buddy?
Great. How are you guys doing? Here's the first question everybody's talking about down here today. Is this thing going to get moved, like day, time, or even place? That's what everybody's – there's all kind of rumblings down here today.
I saw that report from KDKA, and let me explain. Here is what
I need to walk down the hall and talk some sense into some people?
Here's what you need to know about – so are you familiar with lake effect snow, Chris?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have enough friends that have lived in Erie enough to know exactly how that works.
Yeah, so the way it works is which direction is the wind going to blow? Because you will recall maybe there was a game against the Colts a year ago, and I was at that game, and nobody predicted anything that day, and all of a sudden, holy cow, it's a blizzard here. Funny part was, that's in Orchard Park, and I'm driving back, and by the time I got up to Buffalo, the 190 split, nothing. Barely any snow on the ground. So that's why this talk about advanced state of the emergency, what are you talking about? There's no storm system coming through. It's just the wind where it blows. So what I would say, Chris, is, and again, I'm not a meteorologist, but I'm listening to people that are, that could be something that you could have a game like the Colts. That's what could happen. But as far as moving it to Cleveland in advance, we haven't heard anything like that.
Yeah, well, and I think there is a good reason, to talk about the weather in so much as if we are going to have 25, 30-mile-an-hour winds and gusts up around 40, 45, regardless of what direction they're headed in, then that's obviously – I think that's a great neutralizer in this case.
For sure.
And I think, you've got two big-armed quarterbacks. Obviously, Josh Allen a little more talented than Mason Rudolph, but both of them, I think, can cut through the wind if they have to. But you've also got two offenses that have kind of learned to lean on the run game in important moments the second half of the season. So if the weather does present a problem, does it necessarily get either team more off track than the other,
Yeah, it's funny, too, just comparing these two teams. I was thinking to myself, when the Bills were kind of struggling offensively here the last couple of weeks before the Miami game, that the Bills' offense then was starting to look a lot like it did earlier in the season when Ken Dorsey was still the offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. And I know that you've probably felt the same way at times after the firing of Matt Canada in Pittsburgh, where the offense really for Pittsburgh hasn't looked sharp until it was Mason Rudolph back there.
Yeah, there were moments in the last couple of weeks with Matt Canada where they started to lean into the run game. Their first game against Cincinnati, where they beat the Bengals, was, I believe, Matt Canada's next to last game. And that was, leaning into the run game. And they did that with Pickett. And they were trying to do it, I think, at the beginning of that Arizona game as well, and it was working until Pickett got hurt. So really it was... I think, hindsight's 20/20, but when we look back on this season, it'll be, man, if only Mitch Trubisky hadn't played in those 3 games that you were supposed to win against Arizona, New England, and Indy. If you win just 2 of those things, you're talking about a team that's not headed to Buffalo this weekend. Maybe they're headed to Houston. Maybe they're battling with Baltimore down the stretch for a division title. They might not have caught them, but still, nonetheless, I think that's the big sort of 2020 hindsight moment for this year is, man, what if they go immediately to Rudolph instead of to Mitch Trubisky for those games against Arizona, New England, and Indianapolis?
Hey, Chris, where are you at with the job that Tomlin did this year? Because without really having the guy at quarterback to get to the postseason, I think that's a fine job. But I read things online from Steeler fans unhappy that it took so long with Canada and playing down to competition. What right now does the Steeler Nation think of Mike Tomlin, the job he did?
I think most people look at it and say, yeah, you know what? You got a team without exactly a stacked quarterback position to a playoff spot, right? You kept the non-losing season streak intact, and there's something to be said for that. There's also something to be said for the fact that Steeler fans, and I mean this in the best way possible about every single one of us, we're a bit spoiled. We expect a little bit more. We expect more than to go to the playoffs and lose. And this team has not had a playoff victory and now going on 7 seasons. So that's something that people need to see, and it is highly likely we won't see it Sunday against the Bills. People need to see this team improve to the point where they're winning in playoff games again. And so people look at Mike Tomlin, I think, look, there's a certain percentage of the fan base that's never liked Mike Tomlin for various reasons that are completely those fans' problems. I will say intelligent people, I think, are still somewhat frustrated with Mike Tomlin because some of these issues were of his own doing. I brought up Mitch Trubisky, and when you look at it, Mitch Trubisky is only the number 2 quarterback behind Kenny Pickett because they decided to go out and sign Mitch Trubisky and install him as the number 2 a couple years ago. If they go into that offseason instead giving Mason Rudolph the opportunity to prove himself as a starter, let Kenny Pickett have his redshirt year, and don't waste any money on Mitch Trubisky, we're talking about a completely different scenario probably coming into last season and then again this season. Who knows? Maybe Mason Rudolph would have gone on his way and Kenny Pickett would be a more solid starter with more experience watching from the sideline. We can't predict all that, but what we can tell you is those 2.5, 3 games where Mitch Trubisky was at quarterback were enough to take this team from being maybe a top wild card to barely scraping in on the final week of the season, and those decisions are made by Mike Tomlin.
I was going to just ask you, Chris, that mismanagement of the quarterback position, how much of that do you put on Tomlin? And if you're Mike Tomlin and you know that you're being criticized for some of these moves, rightfully so, and you're hearing the chatter, you're hearing the noise, and you know that there are fans, a chunk of the fan base that has wanted you gone over the course of the last stretch of years, even though you continue to have winning season after winning season after winning season. If you're Mike Tomlin, at some point you just say, especially knowing right now that you've got some pretty good names out there for a head coach, you Mike Tomlin, you say, you know what, I'm done with Pittsburgh, I'm out of here. Or does he still consider it to be the best job on the planet?
I've heard some people throw that theory out there, like, is he just frustrated with it? Does he not want to deal with the whole quarterback situation, which again is of his own doing to a certain extent? I can see that line of thinking, but I more so lean towards the line of thinking, which is Mike Tomlin, who now all of a sudden is the most tenured coach in the NFL, has gone from being sort of the young wonderkin, right, who shocked everybody by going to a Super Bowl in his second year, to he's the old ball coach now. And the dude still loves being around football, even if the players get increasingly younger and frustrating for him to deal with, i.e. George Pickens. He still loves being around the game. And I can't foresee him short of, being told, much like Chuck Noll was, I'll make a Steelers analogy, way back in the day, 35 years ago, Chuck Noll was pulled aside by the Rooney family and said, hey, things have not worked here for a few years. You got to clean house, clean out all your assistants and hire some new ones. And he said, no, thank you. I think I'm done here. And he hung him up. Unless they were to do something like that with Mike Tomlin, which they're not anywhere close to being on the verge of, I can't see him deciding to walk away from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Chris, when the Steelers came up here for the regular season last time they did, they won. And a couple things from that game. I think one thing that would go a long, long way, special teams touchdown for the Steelers. And yes, the special teams won the game for the Bills in part against Miami, but the Bills special teams have been a little sketchy here this season. But my question is actually about another big part of that win in week 1 a few years ago. TJ Watt was just a monster that game. How will the Steelers compensate for the loss of Watt this week?
Well, look, I think we're all probably a little bit more confident in Marcus Golden and Nick Herbig as backups at the edge rusher position than we would be in other backups they've had in previous years. But that doesn't change the fact that you don't replace TJ Watt. Like, they may go out of their way to bring pressures from different areas, maybe bring some faux pressure at certain spots to see if they can rush Josh Allen into some bad judgments and mistakes with the football. But there's just no way to replicate what TJ Watt does. So with that being said, guys, that's a huge hurdle. Alex Highsmith can provide some chaos in the backfield, but he's not going to be able to do nearly as much without TJ Watt on the other side of the ball. Again, maybe they decide to bring some different pressures, cook up some different blitzes, or just try to work Allen into some pretzels, some brain pretzels, and make some mistakes. But that's going to be increasingly hard to do when you don't have number 90 chasing you down.
You know, earlier this week, Chris, Sean McDermott actually referenced the last time these two teams were on the same field together, which was the preseason. And it was one-sided. It was ugly. The Bills looked so bad that Sean McDermott put most of his starters out there in the last week of the preseason just to get the stink off of them from the Pittsburgh performance. Yeah. And what was memorable about that preseason game, and it was the preseason, it was meaningless, but it was a physicality that Pittsburgh had that just dominated Buffalo. So I guess I'm asking, knowing these two teams, specifically Pittsburgh, and what you've seen of Buffalo, who has the edge in terms of physical play? Because I know both coaches say they want to play a physical brand of football, but who really has the more physical team to your eyes?
You know, I'll be honest, and I don't want to sound like a homer here, guys. I do think the Steelers have that edge, even, albeit ever so slightly. I think, again, whether it's because of the weather or because of the game plan that each of these teams comes into Sunday with, regardless of weather, I think it's going to come down to run game versus run game. I don't think, in the Steelers' case, they don't want to have to put anything on Mason Rudolph's shoulders. They like him enough, but they don't want to be down by 10 at halftime and having to chase this game in the second half. If they are, then more than likely the Bills run away with this thing and spend the latter half of the fourth quarter covering that 10-point spread. For the Bills, I have to think, if they're able to just lean into that run game and not get away from it, let's say they look up and it's the middle of the third quarter and they're only up by a field goal or a touchdown. They can't panic. They've got to lean into James Cook, I think, lean into those tight ends who, despite the Steelers getting a Landon Roberts back at inside linebacker and Minkah Fitzpatrick back at safety, DeMonte KZ back from suspension after that hit on Michael Pittman, are still soft in the middle of the defense. They've got to lean into their tight ends. They've got to lean into James Cook. I think they do that. It then loosens things up for maybe the occasional deep shot, again, weather permitting. And I think it just makes the Bills' offense that much more diverse. But both offenses have to start by dominating the line of scrimmage. And I still do give the Steelers, like I said, ever so slight an edge in that department.
So, Chris, if you can put your BetQL hat on here and knowing that there's going to be weather, to what degree we don't know, but there's going to be wind, which is going to make things kind of tricky for points. 10 points? Danger and I are in agreement. That seems like too much. Although now I put on the brakes here. Is that smart people in Vegas saying, hey, come bet the Steelers in these points. We really, really like you to.
Well, yeah, I think it's a bit of a sucker's bet in that they know Steeler fans especially are looking for hope, or Steelers bettors are looking for hope, and then all of a sudden you have the weather reports roll in, and, there's no way they're going to cover 10 in the weather. I kind of tend to agree with all that. I hate to say I'm varying from the sharps here and the books, but I just have a hard time believing. Again, the only script where they cover the 10, in my opinion, is they get ahead and they stay ahead all day and never look back and just step on the gas in the Bills. My bet personally would be Steelers plus double digits or nothing. I wouldn't be comfortable not knowing what the weather's going to be like going into this thing because, again, to the point you guys made earlier, it could be sunny at 1 o'clock, and by 2:30 we could have a blizzard, right? Because the wind just changes direction. So I'm not comfortable at all, even waiting until kickoff to make a bet on this thing, unless it's Steelers double digits or absolutely nothing.
Chris, we made the observation earlier, and I know Gene was going to ask you about Kenny Pickett on the depth chart.
Yeah.
The idea that he's still listed as one on the depth chart, even though he's not going to be starting in this game. What is the future for Kenny Pickett? I mean, we've gone as far as to say he feels like a bust, man. I mean, it just doesn't feel like that's going to work out, and it would have been a great story because you got a hometown kid there that played in Pittsburgh, that loves Pittsburgh, that's playing for the Steelers as their franchise quarterback, but man, it just doesn't feel like he's up to that. Is he up to that? What's next for the Steelers at quarterback here moving forward?
Well, if Mike Tomlin does remain in place, and again, like I said, I fully expect that to be the case going into next season, they're going to bring back Kenny Pickett, and he's going to be the number one. Unless Mason Rudolph decides to do what I don't think anybody expects him to do and say, oh, yeah, thanks for holding me down for the last 4 years, guys. I'll battle it out with this underwhelming first-round pick for another training camp and see if I can win the job yet again. I suspect Rudolph will go off and find a gig somewhere else, whether as a starter or a 1B, sort of a break glass in case of emergency kind of number 2 backup somewhere. And they're going to roll with Kenny Pickett in the next year. The one thing about Mike Tomlin, another thing that some people, and rightfully so, have a gripe with him about is that he and the organization as a whole, really, they don't understand the value of sunk cost. They will double down on mistakes just to try and work through them. And, you may say it's stubbornly trying to prove that they're right. In some cases, they just want to believe that they can push past the obstacle and make the best of the situation. I think that's what we're going to end up seeing with Kenny Pickett. I get hammered for it all the time here in town because I'm a Penn State guy, and people think I dislike Kenny Pickett because I'm a Penn State guy and he's a Pitt guy. Nothing could be farther from the truth. I'd love to see this guy succeed, but much like you and most people around the country, it's starting to become fairly evident that he's not that dude. And I'd like to see them acknowledge that sooner rather than later. I'd have no problem going into next year with maybe Rudolph as the 1, Pickett as the 2, and you find yourself a draft pick, but I really doubt that that's the direction they'll go. So that's what feeds into Mike Tomlin leaving Pickett number 1 on the depth chart. They don't yet want to hurt the feelings of the first-round draft pick. They'd like to still keep his psyche as intact as possible.
Yeah, hurting feelings. That's not that's not where you want to be. Chris, I'm looking at this wild card weekend, and we can't say there are a few road favorites in this game. So I'll ask the question this way: give me one upset here of all these matchups.
Oh, geez. Let's see. I guess if I have to go with one, it would be the Rams. He said ? But yeah. The Rams, that game is a total toss-up for me. I know a lot of people are leaning LA in that one because of Detroit's defense. And I think when we talk about, psychic injuries, I think Detroit's been suffering one really that they haven't been able to get over since that loss to the Cowboys. So it'll be interesting to see if they go into this one with their heads hanging in the woe is us. It's everybody in the NFL is against the Lions, or if they come into this with that sort of Dan Campbell mentality of, no, we really are going to bounce back from this, bite your kneecaps off, and plow through the Rams and move on to Dallas.
Before the season started, I had the Niners representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. But given the way it's gone right now, am I crazy for thinking the Rams could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl once again?
I don't think that's totally crazy. I know this is not a popular sentiment, but I have a hard time seeing anything slowing the Cowboys down until they get to San Francisco. I think we may be due for one of those classic Cowboys-Niners NFC championship games that we haven't had in forever, but really, when we were growing up, felt like it was pretty regular. You'd get it every year or every other year during the Switzer and Johnson administrations coming off of the Walsh administration in San Francisco. So I totally expect that to be the conference championship matchup in the NFC. Nothing against the Rams. I just have my questions about if they do run into a quality secondary, how much damage they can do with Kupp and Nakua.
We're talking to Chris Mack, who you can hear on the BetQL network, also 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. So, Chris, the news of today, get your reaction here. And for us here in Western New York, wow, this has been just a different world, not having to worry about the Patriots, and now they're going to have this complete makeover. Bill Belichick, could he end up on a team that right now does not have a head coaching vacancy?
That's one way to look at it. I mean, you scan the league and you ask yourself who's willing to throw a head coach out to take a swing at Belichick. I don't know how many spots there are around the league where they look at it and say, it would have to be a spot, I guess, where they feel like they're just this far away, right? Like they look at it and say, well, we feel like we have most of the right players in place. We just need a guy who can bring it all together. If you're in rebuild mode, Belichick's not the guy because, to be honest, I don't know how much longer he's going to coach. Like, he breaks Shula's record, and then he might be done. It might be another 3 years for Belichick, and he says, okay, I've done everything I need to do. I took a swing at it with a different organization, and I either did or did not accomplish my goals. I really think the place that makes the most sense right now, and I know everybody said the Chargers, the place that makes the most sense to me right now, given the ownership situation, is Atlanta. I mean, you've got an owner in Arthur Blank who, somewhat similar to Robert Kraft, has a pretty strong hand on the organization as a whole, but needs somebody who can come in and kind of put things together with some offensive talent there, even if they don't have the quarterback. Their defense improved a little bit in the back third of the season. That would be the one spot that I would look at because Washington doesn't make a ton of sense, and you never know if the Chargers are willing to spend the money.
What about the Cowboys? If McCarthy can't beat Green Bay or if the exit doesn't go the way Jerry Jones likes, we know there's a relationship there, and you've certainly got the talent on that roster to be competing for a Super Bowl. You think Belichick to Dallas could be something? Or even further, if you want to stay in the NFC East, if Sirianni loses on Monday night, does Philadelphia make a run?
That's a wild idea, the Philadelphia one. But I kind of look at both of those places as, what more do you want from these guys? And, that's step one for both of those spots is there going to be an opening? And I think at Philadelphia, it's a matter of the Eagles looking at it and saying, okay, we had a down season, doing some part to injury, doing some part to our head coach screwing up the defensive coordinator position. Sure, that's worth acknowledging. But we're willing to give him an opportunity to bounce back from it, given the amount of talent that we've accumulated. In Dallas, I think if McCarthy is able to get to an NFC championship game, Jerry, who's, I don't think, never been fully in love with Mike, probably starts to fall in love with Mike. And I don't think there's any reason to believe, short of Dallas falling on their face this weekend, I don't think there's any reason to believe that McCarthy's seat is even the slightest bit warm. So it would be something to see Belichick in either one of those two spots.
Yeah.
I love the theories behind them, but I just don't see it happening.
Chris, tell everybody where they can get more of your content, what time the show on BetQL is, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. At the Chris Mack on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, all that good stuff. And, of course, on the BetQL network, I'll be on this Sunday morning from 8 to 11. We will have BetMGM Game Day, getting you ready for the Sunday games and the Monday Nighter and looking back on the Saturday playoff games. And tonight on the Odyssey Sports YouTube channel, we'll have the latest edition of BetQLU as well, looking back at the Saban resigning, looking at Michigan and what happens with Jim Harbaugh, and touching on some big college hoops games this weekend.
Now, Chris, I don't know how often you go into the Odyssey facilities. I don't know if it's an everyday thing or if it's a once a week thing or if you're doing most of your work remotely, but you've got somebody that we have connections with. She's a Yinzer to begin with, but she did spend a good amount of time here in Rochester, and I know she's roaming the hallways there. If you see Susie Cool,
Susie.
Will you give
she's
her
right down the hall. Yeah. I had a conversation with her this morning.
Good. Give her our best. Tell her that she's missed in Rochester. We love her.
Will do. Absolutely. We got her now, so we're not letting her go.
Awesome. Chris, appreciate the time as always, bud.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
You got it. Chris Mack, 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh.
Hold the time. Whoa. Because I thought she went to, what happened? I missed a beat here. I know she went to Lehigh Valley. Yeah. She ended up in Pittsburgh.
She's in Pittsburgh.
Oh.
Yeah, she's working in Pittsburgh. Good. She's in the family, Gino. You could probably send her an email direct from your Odyssey account right now.
I had no idea.
Uh-huh.
How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. She's doing some work there, I think, at The Fan and also at KDKA, who you referenced earlier.
Yeah, so KDKA, to kind of back this up, because people are like, what game? No, let me be clear, because sometimes you listen, but you only half listen, okay? There's nothing to say that we're hearing anything about the game being moved, like the game was moved to Detroit years ago. There's some reporter from KDKA, I don't even want to source him, who's saying that he's hearing the game will be moved to Cleveland if there's a state of emergency. Okay, the timing of this does not suggest state of emergency. We have not heard anything like that. There's no Bills reporter reporting anything like that. There's no news reporter reporting anything like that. If there is something like that, we will tell you.
Of course. I just laugh. I just think to myself, if it's going to snow, I think we're equipped. I know that a massive amount of snow makes life a little bit more challenging. If it happens in advance of kickoff, then there'll be the plea for, hey, help us clean out the stadium.
It is great because you know what? It gets in their head. Get in your head. It got in the Cowboys' head. Don't tell me it didn't get in Jerry Jones and everybody. Well, the weather. Really?
Nobody wants to come to Western New York in January. Nobody. Even Pittsburgh. I love it. Great stuff from Chris Mack. Appreciate him giving the time this afternoon and getting us prepared for Pittsburgh as they come in to take on the Bills Sunday afternoon in what may be a weather game. We'll find out. Some takes on tap next in the Sports Bar.
This season, would it shock you that the Bills are on one of the best runs of all time? Well, that's to be determined, but I will put into context what the Buffalo Bills have done here in December, now into January, and where this can possibly go. And I've got a fun non-sports take here, Danger, that have you ever heard of public domain? Mm-hmm. Like things, yeah, we know this, of course. Yeah, you're in this business. We can't play things that are copyrighted, and I just think it's kind of funny that one of these things now is just entered public domain.
I've got my list of the top 5 NFL head coaches of all time. Because today, with Bill Belichick stepping down, you will hear more than enough people say the greatest of all time. And I'm going to tell you why he is not the greatest of all time.
So this, to be clear, this is not a new take. You've said this before, but now you're going to rank where Bill Belichick actually is, and I'm curious about this.
Yeah, I'm going to put him on the list. I'll tell you my top 5 head coaches, NFL head coaches of all time. And I have a non-sports take as well. I want to check in on all of y'all and your New Year's resolutions and offer a suggestion for how you can set a tone. We'll get to that and more next. I'll Drink to That is coming up. Plus, we'll be joined by Maggie Gray from Maggie and Perloff coming up here in the 4 o'clock hour as well. Stay in the Sports Bar.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots announced a mutual parting of ways. Belichick would not address any questions today about possibly coaching elsewhere next season. Buffalo Bills on the practice field today. Dawson Knox and Deion Dawkins not on the practice field. They are under the weather. The Bills a 10-point favorite against the Steelers coming up on Sunday. Tonight, it's game 2 of a 6-game homestand. The Buffalo Sabres hosting Ottawa. Our coverage will begin at 7 here on the Fan Rochester. A trade today. The Sabres trading Philip Cederquist to the Montreal Canadiens for future consideration. Cederquist had 1 goal in 19 games for the Amerks this season. RIT hockey tonight playing at Niagara. We've got the NBA in Paris this afternoon. Currently Cleveland leading Brooklyn by 20 at the half. Gene Battaglia on the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, Pete Carroll.
The sport will never, ever be the same because of what has transpired over the past 24 hours. 3 all-time greats. Moving aside.
Think about the Patriots and I'll always be a Patriot.
Patriots!
He's got a cold, so I'm not going to kiss him.
This ain't the Villages!
This wild card matchup against the Steelers.
The weather can be the ultimate equalizer, and I don't like that.
Mike Danger.
I think we would all love if the Bills do to the Steelers similarly what they did to the Patriots a couple of seasons ago, right? Like, we want that perfect game. We expect that perfect game against what is perceived to be an inferior opponent.
Gene Battaglia.
I look at the weather and I look at the special teams. And certainly the turnovers. The Bills will turn it over. You got to figure once or twice. But if the Bills are going to lose a game, how would I describe it? Snow band and a special teams play.
Here come the Buffalo Sabres!
All right, good morning to you, and thanks for listening to the Sports Bar.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You're back in the Sports Bar, Danger and Battaglia. Appreciate you making us part of your afternoon, whether you're listening locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950, anywhere in the free-to-download Odyssey app, or maybe watching the video stream. Our YouTube channel is The Fan Rochester, also at The Fan Rochester on Twitch. Even if you're at your desk, you got an Alexa, an Amazon Echo, ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, and we're there with Maggie Gray joining us here in about 20 minutes from New York. I should say Rochester's own Maggie Gray
Yes.
joining us from New York City, the host of Maggie and Perloff Mornings here on The Fan and CBS Sports Radio. She'll be stopping by to talk some Bills, to talk some NFL, and to accept her 2023 Take of the Year award here in about 20.
Yeah, this was the original report. Okay, this is from KDKA's Marty Griffin. KDKA, our sister station's news station down in Pittsburgh. Sources tell him Steelers Bills could get moved to Cleveland if lake effect weather and state of emergency is declared in Western New York on Sunday. He says the Brown Stadium's officials have been told to be ready. Just about everybody that covers both teams has come out and said, no, including our own Sal Capaccio. NFL spokesman to me, this is Sal tweet via text, regarding this report, not true. There's no change to the game's status. Okay. Well,
It's not going to happen.
No.
What are we talking about? Like, you imagine a postseason game where they say, you know what, we can't play it. You've earned home field advantage as the 2 seed, but we're going to play it at a neutral site, which isn't even a neutral site because Cleveland is a hell of a lot easier for Pittsburgh to get to than it is for anybody in Rochester or Syracuse and Buffalo as well.
It would be a Steeler home game, essentially.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Not happening. Not happening. And damn the weather. Play it. Play it out. Let's go. If it snows, it snows. If it's windy, it's windy. You're not moving this game. Stop.
If there is a state of emergency, that's a different thing. But no, he's talking about that. Name me one weather person that's describing this.
State of emergency. My God, we're talking about a lake effect snowstorm. If it happens, we deal with this all the time. This is not a big deal.
This kind of goes to this. And yes, there were places around us that were affected by the winds on Tuesday night. Why were our kids home Tuesday night? Why did everything get shut down Tuesday night?
Fear.
Oh! Yes. Danger, make sure you be watching the news tonight, where I will be on with Don Hellhart talking about the fear that you should be feeling. You don't know, so you need to watch longer. That's why we lead with the weather in these situations, because if you don't, your life will be in peril.
My favorite, for those of you watching the stream at the Fan Rochester on YouTube and Twitch, my favorite is Gene moving off to the side as if we don't know that he's the guy that's doing the voice.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's my favorite. You're hiding from the camera, just like you're pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. Oh, that's not Gene doing that voice?
That is not me.
That
is
can't
not
be
me.
you. It's my favorite. Baseball writer too. When baseball writer shows up, somehow the camera on the video stream goes blank. Nobody knows where Gene went to, but maybe Gene isn't baseball writer. I don't know. Let's get to some takes.
Takes on tap here in the sports bar as, how about these Bills, right? 5-game winning streak. Who would have thought that? But look at the ultimate prize. How long would that winning streak have to be, Mike Danger?
9 times.
Yeah, it would be a 9-game winning streak. A 9-game winning streak for Buffalo in season. How many times has that ever happened before? The answer is never. The Buffalo Bills 1990 team, some may regard as the best Bills team ever. They won 8 in a row that season. 1963, okay, if you want to say longest winning streak, they won the AFL championship, and then they carried that over to the next season. That ended up being 11 games. So I'm just talking in season. A 9-game winning streak? Like, that's tough, okay? That is really, really tough for any team. You're going to need some breaks here if you want to get that 9-game winning streak. And I'm going to offer break number 1, okay? That would be staying home. You need Cleveland or Houston to take out Baltimore. Danger, I know what you say. Hey, the Bills could go into Baltimore, but let somebody else take care of that. Keep Buffalo in Buffalo this postseason.
Almost feels like this is destined because of the Bills and the sports bar being aligned, that if they were to win the Super Bowl, get 4 more wins, it would equal a 9-game winning streak.
9 times.
Because it's all about us here in the sports bar, obviously. 9-game winning streak.
I'm into numerology, Danger. That is a sign. That's a sign.
It sure is. It sure is, pal. Let's roll the tape. 9-game winning streak for the Buffalo Bills, Super Bowl champs.
9 times.
To answer your question, I wouldn't have seen them rattling off 5 in a row. No chance. And I know a lot of people who were critical of the Bills earlier this year have taken some heat. I don't know that I've taken any heat, you or I have taken any heat specifically. I had a massive rant after the Denver game. Really, really pissed me off.
People were pulling me aside in Buffalo, complimenting you on that rant.
I don't know that I was looking for compliments. I was just fed up. I mean, you have to be. You have to be fed up. And if anybody said, well, you didn't believe in this team, you didn't believe in this. No, it's not that I didn't believe in this team. It's like, how could you watch that and say that that's acceptable, given what we know about the expectations for this team? And it was just piss poor. And it hasn't completely, they've won 5 games, but save for the Dallas game, there hasn't been one where it's like, oh yeah, that looks like the team that can win the Super Bowl. Even Sunday night, first half, terrible. Second half, okay, you pulled it together. You did enough. And can they do enough? Yeah, maybe they can do enough. But I would much rather be confident going in, knowing, like, I would love to be able to say, yeah, Bills minus 10 feels right. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It feels like it's going to be a lot closer than Bills minus 10. And that's because of the inconsistencies of this season. So 5-game winning streak is great. You need to get 4 more. And I think you're going to need a more complete game if you're going to ultimately get to where you want to go. But it's lining up nicely for him, Gino. It really is.
Maybe this team, Danger, they would be going for 9 straight wins this week if it weren't for 2 plays. Play number 1, you had the game won, but you had 12 men on the field. And play number 2, the guy hits a 59-yard field goal at the end of regulation to go to overtime. So crazy things have happened to this Buffalo Bills team. I'm just saying, I still think the Ravens are the class of this team. We're physical. Like we talk about the Steelers being physical. That team is physical.
Sure are. And the Steelers beat them twice. All right, here we go. With the announcement of Bill Belichick retiring today, a lot of people saying greatest of all time, greatest head coach of all time, greatest head coach in the NFL of all time. I'm not shy about this take. I've been saying it for weeks, knowing that this was eventually going to happen. I don't have Bill Belichick as the greatest head coach of all time. Let me give you my top 5 NFL head coaches all time. We're going to start at number 5 with Papa Bear, George Halas, player, coach, owner. There's no National Football League without him. He won championships during a time that we can't even comprehend. Wars going on, people enlisting, 6 titles with the Bears, including 73-0 against Washington back in 1940. Can you imagine a Super Bowl with a final of 73 to nothing? My God, the outrage. His name's on the NFC Championship trophy, named to the 1963 inaugural class of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Papa Bear George Halas, number 5 on my list of the top 5 NFL head coaches of all time. Number 4, his name's on the trophy, the Super Bowl trophy. We're talking Lombardi. Steely, competitive, tireless. Just like another Fordham grad that I know.
Vince Scully, yeah.
The Packers were a reclamation project when Lombardi arrived in 1959. 5 championships before he won the first 2 Super Bowls, before they were even called the Super Bowl, over the Chiefs, over the Raiders. A 900 playoff winning percentage, and that's not going to be topped ever. You put his name on the biggest prize in football. Just an absolute legend. Vince Lombardi, number 4. Number 3, I'm going Shula, just because he's a winner. We know about the perfect season. We know about the most wins all time as an NFL head coach. 33 years on the sideline of the Colts and the Dolphins with 19 playoff appearances, 6 Super Bowl appearances, 2 titles, the only 2 losing seasons in that stretch. 33 years, only 2 losing seasons. Retired in 95 after he took Miami to their 16th playoff appearance. Hall of Fame induction in 97. Shula's number 3. Number 2 is where I have Belichick. He's owned the NFL for the better part of the last quarter century. He's the only coach to win 6 Super Bowls. I can't put him at 1 because of the debate that we're going to have for years to come. And it's the first thing people say when they talk about Belichick's legacy. Was it Belichick, or was it Belichick with Brady? Who was really responsible for their dominance? And I think we all kind of, when you think about this intellectually, you know the answer. He's a great coach, but he's not the best ever by the standards I'm setting here. Number 1, this list: Andy Reid, John Gruden, Mike Holmgren, Brian Billick, Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, Ron Rivera, Leslie Frazier, George Seifert, dozens more, all accomplished, some of those names, championship caliber head coaches who branch off the Bill Walsh coaching tree. Great coaches are not just coaches to the players. They're just making everybody closest to them better. Everybody around them improves. Walsh was named head coach and general manager of the Niners in 1979. In the previous season, the Niners went 2-14. They'd only won 31 of their previous 86 games. They were a dumpster fire. The 81 team won the Super Bowl. The 84 team won the Super Bowl. The 88 team won the Super Bowl. Walsh is my number 1.
Wow, a lot there, Danger. Good job. Hard for me to argue on this, but I'm just going to point out about Belichick, the eras, right? Free agency, it makes a huge difference. Like the Niners didn't get broken up, or any other team in that era. Bill Belichick had to kind of navigate through that. So you had Brady, and you were able to win it multiple times with different casts. Like it reshaped there. You go from having Troy Brown and David Patton slappies like that to the Randy Moss.
You still had the constant, man. You still had the constant. There was one constant there the entire time. And it was his team's greatest strength, and it'll also be the thing that may make people question whether or not he is the greatest of all time. And by the way, being on this list, saying that you're the second greatest head coach of all time doesn't mean we don't appreciate any of your accomplishments.
He's the LeBron of
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, at worst, I'm saying he's the second best. So don't come at me with, that's disrespectful, you don't know what you're talking about. No, I think when you really, really break it down and you think about it, if you're saying at worst he's the second greatest head coach of all time, that's not a slight. It's not a slight. He did well. But because we'll always marry the two, you have to wonder, could he have done what he did if he didn't have the greatest quarterback of all time? And that is undisputed. Brady is the GOAT.
Belichick as a defensive coordinator prior to New England. Yeah, with the Giants, too.
He was good.
I give him a little credit on that.
He was good.
All right, we go from your outstanding take to my silly take. Did you know Mickey Mouse is now in public domain?
Yeah.
How great is that? No more copyright for the mouse. So not only is this a win for weirdos in Times Square and elsewhere, thinking of all the creative possibilities here, Mickey Mouse in a slasher film, endless products. How about Mickey Mouse cigarettes? Mickey Mouse? There's going to be a Mickey Mouse adult theme.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine? What?
Hey.
No, Gene.
Listen, here's today's fun fact in the sports bar. What film is this from, Danger?
This is from, I don't know.
Give me a break.
Brianna's Backyard Barbecue?
No. And it's not from Mary Does Memphis.
Oh,
it's
Debbie Does Dallas.
Yes. That is in public domain, too.
Oh, good.
Not because of the time element like Mickey Mouse.
Did you actually research that? Did you?
I researched things that were in public domain.
Not
And I just kind of came
not
out.
on a company computer, I hope.
No, it was on Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
That film came out in the 70s, and no, it's not because whoever the fine producer was of that film didn't file the paperwork for a copyright.
Yes.
Which is why here in the sports bar we can use this music openly and freely when it comes to talking about hot NFL uniforms. Today's lesson of the day, courtesy of the sports bar.
All right. Debbie Does Dallas is in the public domain. Thank you for that. Gino, not only is that that's a fact that I would not have guessed.
We try to strive. We're going to give you an opinion today, every day. We're going to give you something you didn't know.
Oh, man. That's good. That is rich. Yeah, Debbie Does Dallas. I don't know, man. That is some hot uniform talk music if I've ever heard it. Luckily now, YouTube won't flag us. Knowing what we know, they won't flag us for any kind of copyright.
That's why they don't.
Yeah.
That's why they don't. It's out there and free.
That's great. I have a non-sports take today as well. If I may, I'd like to check in on everyone's resolution to get healthier in the new year, right? Almost everybody goes into the new year with, I need to work out more. I need to eat less junk food. Ooh, dry January. Let me make sure to drink less. And look, you've probably already bailed on the gym. You've had that IPA, or maybe you've dipped into a vat of Chunky Monkey. I'm not here to judge. Don't beat yourself up. Next year, hell, next month, nay, tomorrow, you can start doing this to impress yourself and those around you. Set a tone. Here's how. Start taking progress pics of yourself and sharing them on social media. Every day, never actually working out. Don't change your diet. Keep posting progress pics. It's not like anybody's going to give you a response other than, hey, looking great, Bob, or hey, keep it up. Progress pics without exercising or changing your diet. A strong play to gain some momentum in 2023. I like it.
It's why everybody under the age of 25, right? They're taking selfies every day.
But
so
progress pics, it's usually, your friend that you haven't seen in years, and you happen to see some of their pictures. Oh, so-and-so's really getting into shape. Oh, so-and-so is posting a gym selfie. Oh, so-and-so is flexing. Oh, so-and-so just lost 30 pounds. Progress pics. You know what I'm talking about.
Listen, the person that's really serious about this, you keep it to yourself. That's what you do. Like, you don't say, oh, I'm going to lose weight, or making this resolution, and then...
Well, some people need that to put it out there. You put it out there in the universe, and then, you hold yourself accountable because the universe is now holding you accountable. But I'm saying, screw that. Just post progress pics every day.
So how? Okay, this is my challenge to my partner, Mike Danger, because every year we get around here, mew, 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 the weather. Mew, mew. I'm like,
I hate it.
Wait a second. Mentally tough. You know what's ahead, okay? So I'm going to be like McDermott here. You need to be mentally tough and strong and physical to get to April. Yeah. What are you going to do? You just have to have this mindset.
Dude, I'm fine. I'm good. I mean, I hate the weather. It drives me nuts, but I'm good. I know that there's a week on the beach for me somewhere in the next couple of months. We'll get there and everything will be fine, and I'll leave you here by yourself for a week, and my toes will be in the sand, and you'll be buried under a lake effect snowstorm or whatever it is. Yeah. Let's get to Maggie Gray. Maggie M. Perloff. She is joining us next in the sports bar, not only to to claim her 2023 Take of the Year award. We got to talk some Buffalo Bills. We got to talk some Bill Belichick. Always love having Maggie on with us. You can hear her every morning on The Fan with Maggie and Perloff, and she joins us next on The Fan Rochester. Mike Danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, official partner of 95.7 The Fan. And when it comes to the NFL playoffs, you've got to win one game at a time. But when you bet the NFL playoffs on FanDuel, one game can mean a lot of wins. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. They have all your favorite bets, like the money line and the spread, plus all sorts of prop bets. Right now, every day there's an NFL playoff game. FanDuel is giving all customers a no-sweat same-game parlay. Look at any of these 6 games that we have coming up over the next 3 days this weekend. And how do you want to play those? Do you like the Bills minus the 10 points? Do you like Josh Allen to score an anytime touchdown? You can put all those together with an no-sweat same-game parlay courtesy of FanDuel. Combine all your bets, a bigger payday, plus bonus bets back if your same-game parlay doesn't win. Just visit FanDuel.com/Mike if you don't already have an account, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. Minimum 3-leg parlay required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
You're listening. Rochester Sports Update.
Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots announcing a mutual parting of ways today. After 24 years, the coach giving one last presser in New England.
There's so many fond memories and thoughts that I think about the Patriots, and I'll always be a Patriot. I look forward to coming back here, but at this time, we're gonna move on, and I look forward. I'm excited for the future.
Meanwhile, in Buffalo, Dawson Knox and Deion Dawkins not practicing today. They're both under the weather. Bills a 10-point favorite over the Steelers for the wild card game coming up Sunday. We'll talk some Bills coming up next. Maggie Gray, CBS Sports Radio, joining us here in the Sports Bar. Tonight, it's Game 2 of the 6-game homestand for the Buffalo Sabres. They host Ottawa. Our coverage begins at 7. RIT hockey tonight playing at Niagara. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Is it mental? Man, I hope not. Because if it is, that means that solidifies probably something that maybe Bills fans and maybe the organization doesn't want to face, which is the 13 seconds game might have been the best shot. And I'm not willing to say yet that they're not going to have another great shot at this and that they're not going to have learned from those mistakes in that game and can be better for it. I'm not giving up. This hasn't beaten me down yet. Hell, we're Bills fans. We've been through worse. And I think if a few things can break right and they can start peaking at the right time at the end of the season, why not the Bills, really? I mean, we have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. We still have a great defense despite some of the injuries. I'm saying we now, like I'm suiting up for the team. But I'm still with this team.
That is the 2023 Take of the Year in the Sports Bar, delivered by Rochester's own Maggie Gray. We've claimed her as ours. You can hear her mornings on the Fan Rochester. Maggie and Perloff joining us now in the Sports Bar to accept her 2023 Take of the Year award and to talk some NFL. Maggie, hope you had a great holiday. How you doing?
Guys, light me on fire and throw me through a table. Look where we are. Wild card weekend, and the Bills are a 10-point favorite against the Steelers. Never thought it was going to turn around. And, not delusional. It's not like they're, storming through the schedule here. It's been touch and go. But look where we are. Amazing. How'd this happen?
Yeah, that's the question I was going to ask you, Maggie, because when you had that quote on our show, that was back in October, and we had yet to get to 12 men on the field. We had yet to get to that unbelievable loss in Philadelphia. The team was 6-6 in the beginning of December, and yet they rattle off 5 straight wins. How have they been able to do it?
I mean, listen, I think it's been a combination of things. One, the defense is they're playing really, really well, right? I mean, yes, you got a couple people back like Daquan Jones. I know there's some injuries today with Rapp and Dotson. I don't think practiced today, but that's an anxiety for tomorrow. But I think the defense, they've been playing a lot better. And I thought, one of the greatest moments that we've had as Bills fans was the game against the Cowboys. And I know that game can't happen all the time. Basically, the Cowboys no-showed that game. They got off the plane. I think maybe they got a little cold. I don't know what it was. But the James Cook on the ground, showing you have the ability, you have the discipline to go with what's working, go with the ground game, and never look back was one of the most fun games. And then, listen, Josh is turning the ball over, but the defense has been able to bail them out. And then, the offense has gotten and done just enough. And here the Bills are with a chance to turn everything around.
They've gotten the wins, Maggie, but it hasn't been smooth except for that Dallas game. And so we look at the 10 points and we're like, at least I'm like, God, that feels like a lot. In Pittsburgh, for what it's worth, they play in a tougher division, and they've had a very similar season to the Buffalo Bills, save for their quarterback issues. They had offensive struggles. They moved on from their offensive coordinator. The Bills have Josh Allen. The Steelers play in the AFC North. Other than that, I feel like these two teams are very similar.
Yeah, I don't think that Vegas, really, I don't know what the Bills are against the spread. I'm not sure how good Vegas has been, but it always feels very off to me. Didn't they have the Bills winning by 14 points against the Patriots in the second Patriot game? That never, that was not where the Bills were at that time. So, yeah, the 10 points is throwing me off a little bit. I think it's just because the clear difference at quarterback. And listen, as we've learned, the Bills can lose to anybody right now, right? They can also beat anybody, which is kind of fun. But I think it's such a distinction that, to have your quarterback healthy like Josh is, it looks like he practiced today even though he's dealing with a neck injury. It's such a big discrepancy from Mason Rudolph, and the fact that TJ Watt's not playing, even though they are getting Minka Fitzpatrick back, and he said that he's 100%. You're right. I think it's going to be a closer game, so I'm prepared to kind of just sort of sweat this out. But it's I guess all you can ask for. They're here. They gotta kind of favorable. I'd rather be facing Pittsburgh at home than having to go to Kansas City and play in negative 10 degrees against the Chiefs. That would have been rough.
Yeah, Maggie, the anxiety level here about the weather, not the temperatures, but the wind, and perhaps more importantly, which way the wind is going to be blowing here, because there's some models that suggest you could have a weather event. We're talking the potential of a Colts game from a few years ago in 2017. What does that do to your anxiety level? Because if that happens, that's the great equalizer here, Maggie.
Yeah, pass me a Molson Triple X, and then pass me another one, I guess I would say. Because the Bills are so funny to me, especially this incarnation. I've said it a couple times, and I know other people have said it too. It's like the Bills are a team that was built for a dome, but they play in one of the coldest cities in the country, and they never and snowiest, obviously, and we all know that. So I don't understand sometimes, how sometimes the construction of the team, but if James Cook can continue to be someone they can rely on. And if it's a close game, the commitment to the run should never go away. And if it's going to be a massive weather event, then you're going to get James Cook running and you're going to get Josh Allen running. And that's going to probably be it. And then some throws to Kincaid and hopefully one or two explosive plays to Diggs is enough.
Maggie, let's expand the view a little bit here and allow ourselves to live in a world where the Bills advance. What do you think about the rest of the AFC pool? What do you think about the NFC? How do you see the postseason shaking out here? Because there's so many compelling matchups heading into this weekend, and the way it lays out for a couple of teams, I could see a very reasonable path for the Buffalo Bills to actually end up in Vegas when it's all said and done.
I mean, wow, I don't even know. I don't know if I can get there, right? But yes, this is kind of interesting, especially let's talk about the AFC for a second. Obviously, Lamar and the Ravens, I think, are just a cut above, right? They're on a different level right now. But this is probably the most vulnerable Chiefs team we've seen in the Mahomes era, outside of the Super Bowl against Tom Brady when his whole offensive line got decimated and what quarterback could succeed in those kind of conditions. So the fact that you have Mahomes, Kelsey's having the worst year basically of his career. The fact that the Chiefs, listen, I'll say this and watch, they'll win the Super Bowl, but they don't feel like the boogeyman that they have. And I know it took a Kadarius Toney lined up in the neutral zone for the Bills to beat the Chiefs, but their offense is just not the same. And then beyond that, I mean, what are we talking about? So you have Lamar and you've got Patrick Mahomes, but the offense isn't that great. And then the Dolphins are so banged up. C.J. Stroud's a rookie for the Texans. You're starting Joe Flacco for the Browns, even though the defense is good. This whole juggernaut of AFC quarterbacks that we talked about before the season, it turned out it's three guys, 3.5 if you want to give Tua. It's not like all the quarterbacks we thought were so stacked in the AFC, where'd they go, It's really it's just super top heavy. And then the NFC, man, I've been I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I'm not a Brock Purdy is the MVP person because they have so many weapons. And I know that it takes a great point guard to get the ball in their hands, but I think I finally have to stop, expecting Purdy to be something he's not and just say they're amazing. San Francisco is so good, and I think they're a cut above. And then we'll see, can the Cowboys really turn their fortunes against San Francisco? I'll believe it when I see it, even though their playoff games have always been really tight. And beyond that, I mean, who in the NFC is really scaring you?
Yeah, I'm concerned about your co-host, quite frankly. I mean, does he turn to hate watching the Eagles on Monday night, knowing, maybe there's a change in the air and maybe we could get one of these big-name coaches?
It's funny. He started talking about we're doing the show today, and the Bill Belichick news breaks right in the middle of like first hour, second hour of the show, right around 7:30 or whatever. And he starts talking about Belichick to the Eagles. I was like, no. You don't get to hijack the Bill Belichick, parting ways with New England story. Okay, first of all, if anyone's doing victory laps, it's me, because first we got rid of Brady and now we got rid of Belichick. And it's funny, you get rid of Belichick right when we were starting to beat him a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, if anyone's doing victory laps, it's going to be the Buffalo Bills fans. And then secondly, here's something I've learned about Eagles fans and maybe people generally from Philadelphia, but I don't like to bait with a broad brush. They're kind of miserable. I don't get it. They're kind of miserable sports fans, and they boo a lot, and they throw batteries at Santa Claus and all that stuff. It's not an act, guys. They're really like that. And so I think Eagles fans they're depressed right now prematurely. They don't think they have a shot against the Bucs. We'll see. I mean, it looks like A.J. Brown didn't practice today. Jalen Hurts, they said his finger's going to be okay, but I'm only reveling a little bit in my co-host and his team falling flat at the end of the season.
So, Maggie, I actually thought the same thing as Perloff when we were talking about Belichick earlier this afternoon, that if they were to lose to Tampa, that Sirianni could be out and Roseman could make that call fairly easily. But also in the NFC East, I could see a scenario where if the Packers upset the Cowboys, Jerry Jones picks up the phone and gets his buddy Bill Belichick to coach a talented team in Dallas that just can't get over. I mean, do you see Belichick going to a team that is playing right now, or do you see Belichick going to a team that right now is looking for their next head coach?
Interesting. I see like the original Adam Schefter, Mike Reese report from this morning, the two guys from ESPN who broke the story, said, like, name check the Atlanta Falcons. I'm like, all right, so you're going to tell me that the Atlanta Falcons, who blew the biggest lead in Super Bowl history, is now going to hire the coach that helped orchestrate that big comeback? That seems like particularly painful for the fans, but maybe nobody cares. Maybe it's just me holding on to stuff like that. The Cowboys thing is interesting, but I don't know that they're going to have that long to wait. You're right. If the Packers upset the Cowboys, maybe that sets the whole machine in motion. But if Mike McCarthy wins that first game, I think another team's going to scoop Belichick up. Like, I think it's either going to be the Chargers, maybe it is the Atlanta Falcons, and I don't know if I think there's suitors here for Belichick, and so I don't know if the Cowboys would be able to wait, or he would wait around for the Cowboys unless he has some kind of guarantee from Jerry Jones.
If we back up, there's been so many things we haven't expected. One of them, some may say it was expected, Mike Vrabel out in Tennessee. Are there like back channel conversations? Because I'm just wondering, did Vrabel go to management and say, hey, if this job is open, and well, if it's open, then do you really want to be here? I mean, your thoughts here on the carousel, and how many of these jobs actually right now, Maggie, are kind of predetermined?
Well, I mean, the people who authored the Rooney Rule would probably hate to hear that, unless, of course, it's a minority candidate. But listen, if you're talking about from a Buffalo Bills perspective, last person I want to see is Vrabel. I mean, Vrabel, that's going to be tough. I want the person after Belichick to come in and kind of flounder a little bit and sort of be like all the Belichick assistants who go, get into the head job and then totally stink, like a Josh McDaniels, or something like that. They'll put Vrabel in there, like that guy can actually coach. Oh boy, you might have something. That'd be tough. I'd like a couple more wins against a couple more easy ones against the Patriots. But that being said, I think it's relationships, right? Like I think it's like any business. I think it's based on relationships. And what I find fascinating about Vrabel and the Patriots is, all the reporting was Gerard Mayo was going to have that job, right? I mean, his career with the Patriots. He's in the building, and now maybe the Vrabel thing really shakes that up. And I'm curious, how it's going to go from there. It's a wild scene. Don't you guys notice something else that's going on? Like, people will pencil in Belichick for any job, but meanwhile, Pete Carroll, who just got basically shoved to the side yesterday, has won a Super Bowl, should have won the second one against the Patriots if they just hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch, has won 2 college football championships, is an amazing coach, same age as Belichick, crickets. Like, maybe the Chargers might give him an interview. It's like, I don't know. I think Pete Carroll's still got a lot left in the tank too.
Maggie, I wanted to shift to, this is more of a national story. You host a national show, and this isn't about the coaching carousel, but it's very relevant to what happens with the first pick in the NFL draft in April. What do the Bears do?
Yeah. I've been steadfast on this the whole time. I don't think if you're the Bears, how do you pass on the number 1 overall pick 2 years in a row unless you have a slam dunk franchise quarterback on your roster? Like, how do you justify that? And I like watching Justin Fields play, and he's progressed, and it's not about that, but are you sure he's going to be like a top 5 quarterback someday? Do you think he has that ceiling or that kind of potential? I'm not necessarily sold on that. So to me, if I'm a fan of the Bears, this is egregious. Like, good job on you. You traded last year's pick. It ended up working out in your favor, and you got a haul for it, and you're on your way. But to pass again on the number 1 overall pick, I just don't know how you can do it. You can get Caleb Williams. I think no matter what mock draft or smoke screen or whatever you read, he's been the guy since he was basically coming out of high school. And I think it's going to be him. And it also resets, like, your team from a salary perspective. You keep Justin Fields, you got to pay him. You got to pay him something. It's not going to be small. You start over with Caleb Williams. You have a rookie on a rookie salary. I didn't understand why they kept their head coach, Matt Eberflus, and then fired everyone on the offensive side.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? I don't get it.
Maggie, I don't want to get cocky here with the Buffalo Bills, but I look in the future and I look at the division for so many years. Like, the Chiefs are winning the AFC West by default. And, well, you got a big rebuild now in New England. You've got a 40-year-old quarterback and a perpetual underachiever in New York. And I know that Miami is going to have to pay Tua a lot of money. And who knows what – you've owned that Dolphin team. Can we, feel pretty good about the future here in Western New York?
I mean, listen, 4 division titles in a row. This, only not that long ago, that seemed like a pipe dream. So I don't see why they can't keep the good times rolling. Here's my only thing, and here's a question for you guys, because I don't necessarily have the answer to this. If something happens and the Bills lose to the Steelers, I don't want them to, but let's just say something happens and they lose that game, whether the weather's bad or whatever. Fill in the blank there. What happens to McDermott? Because
nothing.
I don't know.
Nothing.
You don't think so?
Nothing happens. I'm not saying that nothing should happen to him, but nothing will happen to him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, listen, they went on a winning streak no matter how, non-aesthetic it was, not exactly aesthetically pleasing, but they did get those wins. So maybe they deserve that. But that's the one question I can't really figure out.
The only caveat I would put there, because I'll point to like the Leslie Frazier dismissal. We spent a lot of time talking about that. That was weird. The timing was way past due on that. And you're wondering, did that actually come from the owner? And we talked to people like, yeah, that sounded like that was an owner dictate there. So what is in the mind of Terry Pegula? Maggie, he hasn't spoken publicly in 4 years. So ultimately, if for some reason McDermott rubs him the wrong way, but we don't have any indication that that's the case.
Yeah, it is interesting. You're right. I mean, Pegula's not exactly Jerry Jones doing weekly, radio hits and talking in the locker room after the game, basically taking credit for every win. So it is different. Yeah, it's something I can't really understand. I know there's changes behind the scenes. It's mostly on the business side, right, with the Bills. Yeah. But I don't know who's ultimately making the coaching decisions. Is it Terry Pegula? What's Brandon Beane doing there? And McDermott, I think, has a ton of power, and I understand why.
He has a ton of power, but ultimately, I don't think it excuses him from some of the mistakes that we've seen this year. I mean, they are where they are, and they deserve credit for that. But, I mean, the way they lost some of those games, hell, the way they won some of those games, you have to look right at the head coach and say, what are you doing?
I would say this, too, Maggie, because there was 2 different narratives nationally and locally. I kind of observed everybody with that team. The tight end piece was kind of embarrassing. You never want to have a quote like that.
Yeah.
There wasn't anybody to my knowledge, really turning their back on McDermott. And I guess that's all that kind of matters here. And in fact, that came out, and then the Bills win in Kansas City, and they go on this run.
Yeah.
So maybe if there is a parade someday, hey, I want Ty Dunn kind of leading the parade there.
It's funny. And, listen, they were never going to fire him when that came out because it happened years ago. So that would have looked, and it wasn't a secret. So people knew about it. And you knew that he had already moved past it. Then it just took the news cycle to move past it. I don't know if Kadarius Toney doesn't line up in the neutral zone. I'm not sure what happens, but yeah, it's interesting because you're right. Credit to the team, they didn't allow that to become a distraction any longer than it was. Right? It was a news story. Ty's reporting. It lasted for a couple days, and then ultimately, they turned the page on it. And that's a credit to, I think, Josh Allen and the other leaders on the team for just sort of closing ranks, if you will, and just saying, hey, we've got McDermott's back and nothing's going to change that.
Maggie, I'm happy to report before we let you go that you have already been nominated for Take of the Year 2024. Philadelphia fans are miserable, and your take on Philadelphia fans, I think we will isolate that and put that in as our January nominee for 2024's Take of the Year.
You can absolutely do that as long as nobody promises to tell my boss, Spike Eskin, who
I know
from
Spike.
Philadelphia.
Don't worry.
I know.
Spike and I can hash it out. We'll be okay.
No, danger. I know Spike loves you and respects you so much. As long as you promise not to send this clip directly to him now, I would really appreciate that.
Okay, we got to have Maggie's back on this.
Spike is actually I think if you said that to Spike, he would actually kind of be like, "Yeah, we kind of are miserable." I think he might actually agree with your take, Maggie.
Let's not test that theory. Let's just leave that as a hypothetical. Sure.
You're the absolute best. We'll be listening for you tomorrow morning on the show, Maggie. Appreciate the time as always.
Gee, Danger, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
You got it. There she is, Maggie Gray. Co-host of Maggie and Perloff. You can hear her mornings on CBS Sports Radio here on the Fan Rochester. Rochester's own Maggie Gray. Knows her stuff, man.
You play that for Catalana. Or any Philadelphia,
fumes.
Yeah,
you'll see steam coming out of their head. Yes, absolutely. But I think if you look back, and if you're a Philly fan and you look in the mirror, you kind of might agree with it. We kind of are miserable. We do get angry. We do have a shorter fuse than most, and a lot of it, believe it or not, does stem from the sports media landscape there in Philadelphia. It is harsh, man. It is cutthroat.
Yeah. As evident by, hey, you went to the Super Bowl last year. Oh, my gosh, this coach has to
get him out.
And he'll be gone. You watch.
Yeah. Appreciate Maggie stopping by. Our 2023 Take of the Year award winner and strong again in her appearance today. We'll isolate that for Take of the Year 2024.
Wow. Well, we got a lot of ground to cover here, including the Bills injury report. A couple names. One in particular was not on the injury report yesterday. We'll get to that coming up in your happy hour.
Yeah, and you're welcome to join us on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. That number is 866-4FAN. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub. Fire up your next party, work event, or function with award-winning barbecue catered from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub. Good Smoke Barbecue's mouth-watering pulled pork, savory ribs, and tender brisket will create an authentic, slow-smoked barbecue fest for your guests. For any event, Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub delivers the perfect blend of barbecue flavor and service you expect. Visit goodsmokebarbecue.com for the catering menu and order form. Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, modern barbecue experts at 135 West Commercial Street in ER, and goodsmokebbbq.com.
At the Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots announced a mutual parting of ways today. Belichick would not address any questions about possibly coaching elsewhere next season. From Bills practice today, Dawson Knox and Deion Dawkins not on the field. Both are under the weather. The Bills a 10-point favorite against the Steelers coming up Sunday. We'll have pregame coverage beginning at 9 a.m. here on the Fan Rochester. Now tonight, it's game 2 of the 6-game homestand for the Buffalo Sabres. They take on Ottawa. Our coverage will begin at 7. Buffalo Sabres today trading Philip Cederquist to the Montreal Canadiens for future considerations. Cederquist had 1 goal in 19 games for the Amherst this season. RIT hockey tonight. They're down the thruway at Niagara. Canisius coming to town Saturday. NBA in Paris today. The final Cleveland over Brooklyn, 111-102. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, Pete Carroll.
The sport will never, ever be the same because of what has transpired over the past 24 hours. 3 all-time greats. Moving aside.
Think about the Patriots, and I'll always be a Patriot.
Patriots!
He's got a cold, so I'm not going to kiss him.
This ain't the Villages!
This wild card matchup against the Steelers.
The weather can be the ultimate equalizer, and I don't like that.
Mike Danger.
I think we would all love if the Bills do to the Steelers similarly what they did to the Patriots a couple of seasons ago, right? Like, we want that perfect game. We expect that perfect game against what is perceived to be an inferior opponent.
Gene Battaglia.
I look at the weather and I look at the special teams. And certainly the turnovers. The Bills will turn it over. You got to figure once or twice. But if the Bills are going to lose a game, how would I describe it? Snow band and a special teams play.
Here come the Buffalo Sabres!
All right, good morning to you, and thanks for listening to the Sports Bar.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
I'm still, stunned. Every time she comes into the Sports Bar, she delivers. Maggie Gray was fantastic just a few minutes ago.
She is one of the best in the game today.
Maggie Gray, granted, 2023 Take of the Year winner here in the Sports Bar, a prestigious honor. What does she do? Does she let down? Does she rest on her laurels? No, Gino, no, I say. She comes in here and knows the formula. Trista Crick won 2022 Take of the Year for a similar strategy. Eviscerate Philadelphia.
Here's something I've learned about Eagles fans and maybe people generally from Philadelphia, but I don't like to bait with a broad brush. They're kind of miserable. I don't get it. They're kind of miserable sports fans, and they boo a lot, and they throw batteries at Santa Claus and all that stuff. It's not an act, guys. They're really like that. And so I think Eagles fans they're depressed right now prematurely. They don't think they have a shot against the Bucks. We'll see.
Look in the mirror, Eagles fans. You depressed? Miserable?
Well, they're all going to hate watch. See, we need Belichick.
I'm just waiting for the the advertisement to come up while I'm streaming something where, the pharmaceutical ad for Philadelphia fans, and you see sad Philadelphia fan looking in the mirror, miserable, depressed. Like, what's that drug called? What's that drug look like? Or is it Philly fans dancing around like, this is what life could be like? Like the diabetes commercial where life looks so great when you got A1C.
Yeah, it's like a musical there.
Yeah,
A1C.
Wow, everything's so great. If I just take
this drug.
Yeah, that'll be great. What's
A1C.
that look like for Philadelphia fans? Battery chucking Philadelphia Eagle fans.
You knew the drug? See, I work in marketing. I had no idea what drug you said that.
I see it all the time. Yeah. You don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
right?
She looks so happy.
I don't know what the name of the drug is. I don't know if it really worked. I just know that there's some woman dancing around with her diabetes, and everybody around her is just thrilled.
Before we get to Belichick, before we get to the Bills injury report, and there is news today on that, I want to go back to one thing Maggie said, and she put us on the spot. I'm just wondering, could there be anything here? And look, I'm not trying to stir the pot, but this is national host Maggie Gray throwing this out. What if the Bills lost to the Steelers? What would that do to the status of Sean McDermott?
Here's what I would ask you. Because to be fair, we're doing this exercise with every team that is still alive, that's still playing football, that's still in the postseason. Is your head coach better than Bill Belichick? Is Bill Belichick a better option than what you have right now at head coach?
Well, if we're going to compare the two in the resumes, it's not even close. But
right now, better option right now.
No. You can't. In terms of Buffalo, you can't have the fit danger. The fit for McDermott in Buffalo. If you blow out a Sean McDermott and bring in somebody else, it's this team kind of is gelled together with Bean and McDermott and everything else. I don't think so.
Our answer was no. I mean, our answer to Maggie when she said it was no. No, what happens? Nothing happens. If they lose on Sunday, if they lose to the Steelers, if they lose to Mason Rudolph at home in the wild card round of the playoffs, and depending on how it looks, based on what we've seen this year, you could make the case that change should happen or could happen, but it won't. It won't. You could look right now and say, is Bill Belichick a better option next season for the Buffalo Bills than Sean McDermott? I don't think that's a slam dunk. No, he's not.
But I'm going to give you 4 teams, Danger, for Belichick that are in the postseason right now that I could picture him being the head coach next year, because Bill Belichick is not going to do any heavy lift, folks. He's not there for the big check. Atlanta, honestly, I think Atlanta's a heavy lift. Sorry, they don't have a quarterback. Carolina, massive lift. Chargers, no, that owner's not going to give you all the resources you need. He's going to go somewhere that is ready. He can win games, win another championship. By the way, just like how Brady did in Tampa. And that's stop number 1. Tampa. Ball's good that you won a mediocre division. Could you see Belichick in Tampa, Mike Danger?
Well, that's where everybody goes to die. Yeah, I could certainly see that.
Including you someday.
That's right.
Bill Belichick loves himself some NFL history. Matt LaFleur has kind of farted around. Could you see that as a possibility?
I don't see that one, no. I struggle with that one.
Philadelphia.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes, certainly. I'll also throw in there Pittsburgh. Don't think Tomlin's going anywhere. Really, honestly, don't think Tomlin's going anywhere. But if what they put out on Sunday is so lopsided, if the Bills embarrass Pittsburgh,
yeah,
that chatter will bubble up again in Pittsburgh.
Well, Tomlin may get to a point where I just need a break. Like you've seen all great coaches, I just need a break. And maybe he steps away from a year here.
Or it could be what Chris Mack was describing earlier when he joined us in the 3 o'clock hour. You know, this was the conversation that the Rooneys had with Chuck Noll back in the day. We need to clean house. And he didn't want to do it. He walked away instead of cleaning house. I don't know if the Steelers are there, but we saw how hard it was pulling teeth to get them to acknowledge that they got it wrong with Matt Canada. Maybe that happened. Maybe that conversation happens again, and maybe Tomlin takes a similar approach as Chuck Noll and says, you know what? Nah. Rather than fire the guys that I've been in battle with all these years, I'd rather just step away. Good luck rebuilding it with Bill Belichick.
Hard for me to imagine, because say the Steelers get blown out on Sunday. I don't see that being the thing that pushes him to move away, or the team to move away. Also, we were joined by Chris Mack earlier. That point spread is odd, is it not? If this is going to be a weather game, which it very well could be, at the very least, we know there's going to be wind. What does wind do? It makes it hard to pass. 10 points just seems like way too many for Buffalo. Danger, it almost seems like Vegas is saying, hey, Steeler fans, hey, everybody else, you know this inconsistent Bills team, come put your money on Pittsburgh. You and I are thinking that's way too many points, but does this look like a trap? PJ Glasser will join us tomorrow.
Oh, good.
He normally joins us on Wednesday. He had some other fill-in duties, and that's going to be question number 1 there. So I would just, if you want to play this game, I would just kind of at least wait to hear what PJ has to say tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I want to wait and see what the weather forecast looks like, too, because I think that might have a big impact on it as well. PJ Glasser, the host of BetQL's Send It In, stopping by the sports bar tomorrow at 3:25. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Yeah, the more I think about these two teams, the more it becomes very clear to me that really the biggest difference between the two of them is Josh Allen. They both have a desire to play physical. They're both fundamentally grounded defenses. They have head coaches that are, tough physical guys that are kind of stubborn, that have had their ups and downs through the season. Both teams moved on from their offensive coordinator mid-season. Both teams haven't really seen that dramatic an improvement. I mean, there have been moments where we're like, oh, Brady's got it right, and Brady is an improvement. But the Steelers have had moments where it's like, this looks just as bad as it did when Canada was here. And a lot of that is quarterback play. So if the two, and their pathway, I mean, the ups, the downs, the losses against teams you shouldn't be losing to. The Steelers play in a tougher division, and the Bills have Josh Allen.
I would say credit the Buffalo Bills in the skill player department. You can't say that with every team, and yes, the Steelers have a few good running backs, but please, Steph Diggs is a pro. Pickens has a long way to get to that point. And
pretty good, Gene. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah, on potential. Yeah,
Pickens is a good player. You get him a quarterback who can get him the ball with regularity. Pickens is a good player.
Fair enough, but I was going to finish up the point by saying the tight ends. Like, that's where the Bills can kind of, especially with the linebackers, Knox, and Kincaid, that's where I think the Bills can make some hay coming up on Sunday.
All right, so to that, Dawson Knox out of practice today with some illness. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Dawson Knox as well as Deion Dawkins. So Dawkins was limited yesterday with a hand, and yesterday was just a walkthrough. Today was a full-blown practice for the Buffalo Bills as the Thursday injury reports like this, and there's a lot of names here on Danger. Not practicing again today, Gabe Davis, and here's a big clue that Gabe Davis is not going to play this week. Steph Diggs talking about the need to get a win so Gabe can be there next week. Okay, you kind of gave that one away. Dotson not practicing today with a shoulder. He was limited or listed as limited yesterday. And here's a clue that Dotson might not be ready. Did you see who the Buffalo Bills brought back today on the practice squad?
I did.
A.J. Klein, Eli Anku off the practice squad. So why would you care about a practice squad move? Well, if there should be an injury between now and, say, game time, you're going to need to elevate somebody really quick. So that, to me, leads says, okay, Dotson might not be. Douglas not practicing again today. Deontay Hardy not practicing for personal reasons. And then everything else. Ty Johnson still limited in the concussion protocol.
You can join us at 866-4FAN to talk Bills Steelers. 866-4326 is the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. We're also on Elon's Twitter. That's X. At the Fan Rochester. Brian, what if the Steelers run it down their throat and smoke them by 3 touchdowns? Is McDermott back? Yes.
Saying that
yeah, it's true, but we're in unison because it's true. I don't think that there's any way. I don't think there's a single outcome on Sunday where McDermott isn't back next season. I think we're past that now. We can talk about the inconsistencies. We can talk about some of the lack of detail that we've seen through the course of the season, and I'm sure we'll continue to see it as long as McDermott is the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. The NFL's weird. Games are strange. Things happen. You want a perfect game, but really, when you look at the schedule this year, did you have a perfect game other than Dallas? Dallas was the game, right? Any head coach would sign up for what you had against Dallas, which is essentially a team not showing up for a game.
Miami first time around too, though. It's like when they won that, I'm like, holy cow!
They made
this
the
team
adjustments they made. I mean, it wasn't pretty to start, but they did make adjustments. And McDermott, to his credit, both Miami games, the Dallas game, I mean, like he's had some good. He's, I can't remember who dubbed it a McDermott masterclass, but he's had a couple of masterclasses in coaching this year. And then he's also had some really, really fall on your face moments where it's like, what the hell is going on with this team?
Yeah, but on the other hand, this is like, when the team was at 500 following that Philadelphia loss, we're bringing up the how long can you stay in one place and not get to the Super Bowl. And if we're going into year number 8, we're going into Jack Del Rio territory. 13 being the mark with Marvin Lewis. Okay, but now you're wondering, what is it going to take? Appreciate writing in, Brian. John writing in. Count Hesco has made so many appearances lately on the sports bar. Danger, you'll need to start adding him to the show intros. Okay, go Bills. Yacht Rock John. Okay, couple things. Danger, I know you want to take credit. That's Dandalorian. Who does the show
I don't do that. Yeah, we tag the Dandalorian on that one, John, because he's the bounty hunter of the finest audio in the galaxy, and helps put together our show open for us every afternoon here in the Sports Bar. And I don't know, I think it's fun if you're watching at the Fan Rochester on YouTube or Twitch. Whenever, it's the weirdest thing, but whenever Count Hetzko makes an appearance here in the Sports Bar, Gene kind of disappears. You just don't see him here anymore. It's like he vanishes.
I run over to see him.
You want to go over and shake his head.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, come on into the Sports Bar. Somebody's got to open up the door for him.
Same thing happens when Baseball Writer shows up. Gene just kind of disappears. It's the weirdest thing if you're watching the stream on YouTube and Twitch at the Fan Rochester. So yeah, we'll I think if we go back, a critical ear would have heard Count Hetzko make an appearance in our show intro today. Actually, John, I'm pretty sure that there was something in there.
Yeah, I believe. And you may hear from Count Hetzko at some point as well here, because there was a report today that is not true from KDKA, Sal Capaccio, and others that put it out. No, there's no discussion, but that's a news station reporting that the NFL is having discussions about moving this game to Cleveland if there is a state of emergency. All right. In what world with possible lake effect snow? It's not going to arrive in time for a state of emergency. So would the Buffalo Bills be amenable to a move? Absolutely not.
Who calls the state of emergency?
It could be either Hochul or it could be the county exec polling cards.
So polling cards has the pull to make that call if you wanted to. Erie County is a state of emergency, because I would think neither of them want to do that to the Buffalo Bills.
The reason you would have nothing to do with football. It's just for emergency personnel to do their job. Stay off the road so people can do their job.
Of course, but are we not equipped for lake effect snow? I mean, we've been through this before.
Everybody was there for a big snowstorm against the Colts, and it all worked out okay.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I mean, different team, different energy around the team now than there was during that Colts game. I mean, I would imagine that during that Colts game, the Bills team that wasn't really they weren't a contender, if I'm not mistaken.
Dude, they hadn't even broken the drought yet.
Yeah.
That was 2017. That was McDermott's first year, and they were farting around.
You'd have more, you'd have a higher attendance for this game, a playoff game, than you certainly would for the Colts game.
No. Like
that was a sellout?
Sure.
The Colts game.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody was there. You were there. I was there. Every Bills fan was at that game. But really, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just think that the weather is the weather. Fine. Play it. Bring it. If it snows, it snows. If it's in the Steelers' heads that it could be nasty, great. I don't think it matters to them. I don't think it matters to the Bills.
60,222 was the actual turnstile count. So either they were short of 10,000 people said, no, this team sucks. I'm not going out in this weather. I don't know.
Yeah, that was my point, is that if they're not a good team, the weather could be a deterrent. But you're not missing a playoff game in Orchard Park, even if there is a lake effect snowstorm or a squall that's just parked over the stadium. All right, the big news of the day.
He's gone.
It is over. Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots have parted ways.
Robert and I, after a series of discussions, have mutually agreed to part ways. And for me, this is a day of gratitude and celebration. Start with Robert and his family. It's great. So much thanks for the opportunity to be the head coach here for 24 years. It's an amazing opportunity. Received tremendous support. We had a vision of building a winner, building a championship football team here, and that's exceeded my wildest dreams and expectations. The amount of success that we were able to achieve together, through a lot of hard work and contributions of so many people. So I'm very proud of that, and I always have those great memories. I'll carry those with me the rest of my life.
Aww, how sweet. The softer side of Bill Belichick. Just heaping it on. Hey, look, it's an unbelievable run. It won't be duplicated with that organization. Probably won't be duplicated in the NFL anytime soon. It's fantastic.
There's reports out in New England that it is actually Gerard Mayo as the leading candidate. And I would say, awesome.
Great.
Fantastic, because all Bill Belichick proteges and their coaching staff always work out. So why not keep it in the family?
Worst case scenario is Vrabel. Worst case scenario. If Vrabel ends up with the Patriots, bad news for the Buffalo Bills. I don't like that.
Welcome to the AFC East, Derrick Henry. Like, could they get one great year out of Derrick Henry in New England, and with that defense, would that be enough? They still don't have a quarterback.
I struggle with that one. I struggle with that, but I think Vrabel would actually be an upgrade from what Belichick was this year. Where Belichick is right now isn't where Belichick was, and again, it goes to the point of, does Belichick get the flowers that he gets if he doesn't have the best quarterback of all time through the course of that era? I don't know. I really don't know. But it's over. Bill Belichick making it well known that he wants to continue to coaching, and Robert Kraft making it well known for his part that he expects to see Bill Belichick at some point on an opposing sideline. They handle it with class and handle it the way you would expect them to handle it. They didn't take questions afterwards, after their statements. They didn't make themselves open to questions. I understand that as well. Now it's on the business for Bill Belichick to find a new team, and for the Patriots to find a new head coach.
That you're listening to his tone, his energy level. That sounded different from Belichick.
Yeah, he sounded relieved. It sounded like a weight was off his chest. I don't know that you're going to see a Bill Belichick character change with a new team. I don't think it's going to be different. I think when it comes to Bill Belichick and game days and press conferences, it's going to be the same Bill Belichick. But you get a little bit of a glimpse there as to, I think he started his statement by saying, I haven't seen this many cameras since we signed Tebow. Whoa, Bill Belichick bringing the jokes.
Hi-oh! Tebow catching the shrapnel there.
Didn't know you had it in you, Coach.
Wow, we're bringing Tebow into this.
Way to break the ice. It was an expression of gratitude, and both parties now move forward and look forward to what their challenges will be here ahead. In the last 24 hours, between Saban, Carroll, I guess Carroll would be more than 24 hours, but in the last day and a half, it's been pretty monumental here.
Well, the Carroll stuff is interesting because now it's kind of coming out that he was kind of elbowed out of the door. So he's got a great resume, as Maggie Gray pointed out. 2, you could say one was taken away. Championships at USC. Super Bowl, you could say 2, but oops, only 1. Sorry there, Marshawn. He's won at both levels. Okay, that is something that, who else has done that? Jimmy Johnson, that's it. Danger, should Pete Carroll get another look? I think he should, but I also think that ageism is a real thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he is not going to get as many as other young guys, and I think it's a shame because that guy brings energy right now, but Carroll could end up in the part where he could be part of a rebuild. I could see Carroll in Atlanta. That would make sense to me.
I just feel like there's, with both Belichick and with Pete Carroll, if you have long-term vision, if you're a futurist, if you're an owner that says, what does our team look like in 10 years, 5 years or 10 years, you're wondering, well, why am I investing in this guy that's 72, who we know can coach, is very good, top of their field, but we may only have them for 3-4 years? Do these guys really want to be coaching when they're 80? Do you really want a head coach? That would be as unprecedented as getting the young hotshot coach, right? It doesn't happen that often. Sean McVay is still, I want to say, still the youngest coach in the NFL. Isn't that remarkable?
Wow.
To think that's
crazy.
He's accomplished what he's accomplished, and he's still, I want to say, the youngest head coach in the NFL. I might be wrong on that. You can fact check me. But that's, keeping a coach around until age 80 would be the equivalent to that. You're really going to hold on to that guy that long? Feels like that might be, if you're thinking long term, that might be ill-fated.
Okay. Here's a fun fact: longest tenured head coaches now in the NFL. We already mentioned Tomlin as one. Right? Okay. Do you know there's some ties in here? Can you name the other top 5?
All right. Longest tenured head coaches now that Belichick is down. It's Tomlin 1. It's got to be John Harbaugh 2.
Correct.
Is it McVay? No. Could it be McVay?
Missing an easy one.
I am, aren't I?
Yeah.
Hang on, give me a second. I'm running through. McDermott.
No.
Oh.
No, 11 years for Andy Reid in Kansas City.
Okay.
So Tomlin, Harbaugh, Reid, and then 3 coaches, 7 seasons each for McDermott, Kyle Shanahan, and Sean McVay.
Yeah.
So Sean McVay, youngest head coach in the NFL, tied for the 4th in terms of longest tenured. Zach Taylor and Matt LaFleur, 5 seasons each.
Yeah. And that McVay coaching tree, which is an offshoot of the Shanahan coaching tree, which is an offshoot of the greatest head coach of all time's coaching tree.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. I can't believe I forgot about Reed. Another Walsh protege. The Andy Reid coaching tree is impressive in its own right. Almost thought about putting Andy Reid in my top 5. He's right on the outside looking in. Lots of change ahead, and it's all interesting and it's all good. If you're the Bills fans, you could say it like Belichick's gone. Now maybe there's some of us that I know you feel this way, Gene. Keep him around as long as we can. But the Patriots weren't going to go through another poor season the way they did this year.
No, but if they ended up hiring Gerard Mayo, I'd applaud that.
Or if they brought back Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, you'd say that. No, McDaniels will be Belichick's offensive coordinator wherever they end up. That's a given.
You don't think he wants to be a head coach again? What about promoting Bill O'Brien? I'm sure he's going to be an internal candidate as well, right?
Yeah.
Got to make Bill O'Brien a candidate. Or does Bill O'Brien go back to Alabama?
Ooh.
You need a head coach.
See, we even dive into where do the Crimson Tide go from
Josh
here?
McDaniels go to Alabama. They need a head coach. God, it's going to be interesting. This has been a monumental week. Like the regular season is over, but I don't remember a head coaching cycle like this. This is remarkable.
We're not done with the vacancies here. We have 8. We're going to get to 10, right? Do we get 2 more?
My preseason prediction was 9.
9 times.
I think we get at least 1 more. I think we'll get to 9.
January, underrated month on the sports calendar. Really is.
Well, I mean, the action is immense. I can't wait for this weekend. I cannot wait for this weekend. Just lounging around like a sloth and just watching the playoff games. Going to be great.
Did you pay for Peacock?
Yeah.
You did?
I did. I bought it for the Chargers game, and I will cancel it after the Chiefs game. Gone.
Bye-bye.
See ya. I'm good. Until next season when they say, hey, we've got more games exclusively.
That's where people are like, I'm not going to do this out of principle. Like, okay, you realize this isn't going in the other direction. Like every one of these networks will have some sort of...
A lot of angry old people yelling at the clouds that don't understand that paid is the new free. That everything will cost us something in the future.
And of course, you can't pay for it. So you know what? Then watch a movie because let's be honest. How competitive do you think Chiefs-Dolphins is going to be Saturday night?
I can't wait for Chiefs-Dolphins. I think it's going to be good.
Really? I think Kansas City will. Okay, we've been farting around. We're going to turn it on here.
I think Miami, even though they're kind of beat up, even though it's a cold weather game.
Well, they run the ball, and that would be ironic.
Yeah,
that would be bad though. Danger. That would be really, really bad because I don't want the Cleveland Browns here in the divisional round.
I'm not afraid of them. Bring them to Buffalo. Let's go. Not afraid of Joe Flacco. Get out of here. All right, we got to get to a round of shots next in the sports bar.
We have successfully avoided talking about the Buffalo Sabres, who we'll have on our station.
No, I'm calling this moving forward. They're no longer the Buffalo Sabres. They're the apathetic Sabres. They reside in apathy. They are the apathetic Sabres.
Yeah, the apathetic team down the road. Syracuse basketball, we'll talk a little bit about. Change coming up to one professional draft. We'll tell you about that as well. And then an update on the Eric Spoelstra. Remember we told you about the contract yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then got off the air and they're like, ooh, I missed that. Kind of a key detail here on the Spoelstra thing and why actually Pat Riley did him the solid.
All right, round of shots on the way next. And last call coming up if you want to pull up a stool, 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
You're listening to the Sports... Sports Update.
Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots announced the mutual parting of ways. After 24 years, the coach giving one last presser in New
So
England.
many fond memories and thoughts that I think about the Patriots, and I'll always be a Patriot. I look forward to coming back here, but at this time, we're gonna move on, and I look forward and excited for the future.
Belichick would not address any questions about the future. Dawson Knox, Deion Dawkins did not practice today. They are both under the weather. The Bills a 10-point favorite in this game against the Steelers, and what could be a bad weather game. Our coverage begins at 9 a.m. Sunday here on the Fan Rochester. Sabres today trading Philip Seerquist to the Montreal Canadiens for future considerations. He had one goal for the Amerks this season. Sabres tonight taking on Ottawa. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Epic victories, heartbreaking defeats. No matter your team, no matter your game, we talk sports. The Fan, Rochester.
They're measuring sticks. I think the guys feel it's measuring sticks, and it's become a little bit of a more of a battle in that regard. I think the players are very well aware of that in a sense. That there's pride in both locker rooms. I know I've coached quite a few players on that team.
What are we measuring? Who can be more mediocre? That's Don Granato. The apathetic Sabres hosting the Senators tonight.
For so many those games, they didn't have Tage Thompson. Now you're going to be without Jeff Skinner for a while. Skinner now officially listed as week to week, although the Sabres did not make a corresponding roster move. For now, Skinner is on that active roster. He has 17 goals this season. He is actually Buffalo's leading scorer. It's the third meeting of the season tonight between the Sens and the Sabres. The team splitting a pair up in Canada. This will make all the difference tonight, Danger, as Buffalo sporting the black and red Goatheads. Coverage begins at 7 tonight here on the Fan Rochester.
Giant Francesa at this point.
Oh, who cares?
The Goathead specifically.
Yeah. Syracuse got off to a big lead against Boston College, only to watch that lead evaporate. Game tied at 55 with 5 minutes to go, while the Orange end up pulling away for a 10-point win. Chris Bell leading all scorers with 20. SU now at 11-4 on the season, but just 2-2 in conference play. Now, all right, what are you all about? Let's see Saturday, noon tip at North Carolina. UNC 12-3 overall, 4-0 in ACC play.
Feels like a loss, Gene. Feels like a loss.
I am not going to dispute that. Alabama fans must be a little bit worried about the future. How could they not be? Following Nick Saban's retirement, we had our first decommit. Ryan Williams was the 9th rated prospect in this year's class, the wide receiver. It is a dead period, though. He cannot begin the process of looking for a new school until Friday. The futures market, did you catch this? They went wild here. Prior to Saban's announcement, the Crimson Tide were plus 500 to win next season. That moved to plus 1,500, and then the bettors saw the value there. So now the odds have settled in at plus 1,000.
I would still go Georgia next season. That would be my pick. Right now, if you were to ask me right now, Georgia.
In longer playoff, though.
Still.
Mm-hmm. The NBA finalizing plans to turn the 2024 draft into a 2-night event in Brooklyn. This is according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. The draft would have the first round and the second round in successive nights, June 26th and 27th, which are Wednesday and Thursday night. That would also be a Francesa for most. Today, we had the game in Paris, Cleveland knocking off Brooklyn. Tonight, there are 4 games. Knicks in Dallas, doubleheader on TNT. Has the Celtics against Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks at 7:30, followed by the Lakers and Suns at 10.
We're still appreciating LeBron, right? Just making sure.
Yeah.
Are they still a sub-500 team? I don't know.
Let me just double check. So last check, they were sub 500, but they were still in the playoff playoff farting around.
Yeah.
I mean, and remember, you get in with seed 7 through 10 in the play-in round.
They'll be the play-in round.
Yeah,
they're a play-in round team.
Yeah, they're playing. No, they're 500.
Okay,
they're 19-19.
Regardless, that in-season tournament that's hanging inside the arena looks awesome.
They won that.
I know.
Can't take it away from them.
I know.
And you can't take away the bubble victory either.
So impressive. No, it's the 2 championships that aren't real.
Finally updating a story. We told you how Miami Heat coach Eric Spoelstra signed a record $120 million contract extension for the next 8 years. Turned out, Danger, there's an important detail to the story. The Heat,
boy.
They waited until his divorce was finalized to give him that decision.
Oh, boy.
Spoelstra is 53. Nikki Spoelstra, 36. They finalized their divorce in November after 7 years of marriage. Miami Herald reporting this in a joint statement. The ex-couple split amicably, don't they always? And they are committed to co-parenting their 3 children, all under 5 and under.
Yeah, I hate that. I hear that story, and I don't hate it for Spoelstra. I get what they did there, but at the same time, like, let's make sure that those kids are okay. I mean, I don't know. We're not going to pretend to know what's going on in the personal life of Eric Spoelstra, but I imagine that a NBA head coach or any head coach in professional sports probably isn't around a lot for their family or for their kids.
Yes, that's true. And what kind of brought this on, too, was Nikki Spoelstra on Instagram. Just that there are people baiting her, and then she's firing back and posting statements about bullies online or anything. Like, you have to know that if you're going to be a public figure, which your ex-husband was, then these things blow over. You really should log off. That would just be my suggestion.
Log off, man. Don't engage. Don't read the comments.
You can't win.
No, and you're going to drive yourself crazy. You absolutely drive yourself nuts. Don't do it. Well, that's unfortunate. I didn't even realize. Look, I don't know anything about Eric Spoelstra's personal life. Didn't realize he was married. Didn't realize he was going through a divorce. Didn't realize he had 3 kids. And as we were talking about yesterday, I had no idea that they waited for his divorce to be final before they gave him the big payday. I just hope that doesn't come at the expense of the kid's future. I don't think it will. I think he'll be just fine. Those kids will be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, if you have 8 years on your contract and your kids are of this formative age, like, how many coaches have to go from town to town to town, and the kids get uprooted, and it's a new school, and it's a new set of friends. At least they've got a base there, so that's not bad.
Last call is next in the sports bar. We utter the most dangerous words in sports talk radio. We go to the phones. 585-866-4FAN is the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line if you want to join us. 866-4326. Love to get your predictions for Sunday's game in Buffalo. The weather appears to be a factor. We'll talk more about that, and we'll recap some of what we learned from Chris Mack from 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh, and Maggie Gray of Maggie and Perloff here, Mornings on The Fan, who joined us last hour and was fantastic as always. That's coming up as we close up shop in the sports bar.
You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You know, Skinny is a big part of when we go. He's usually going. And yes, it's a big loss. I think if we missed him in Vegas and the guys performed well, I believe that was a game, and guys just have to elevate and pick up. And of course, you're going to miss Jeff. It's just got to pick it up.
No Jeff Skinner tonight for the Buffalo Sabres as they host the Ottawa Senators. We'll have that action for you tonight at 7 o'clock on The Fan. Rochester?
I didn't pay for Peacock. Can I come over Saturday night?
Yeah, sure.
Like I'm looking at... We've been focused so much on the Buffalo forecast and what could happen, what couldn't happen again. It's a lake effect ban. Who knows? What we do know, though, is the forecast in Kansas City. Saturday night into Sunday morning. So in those wee hours of Sunday morning in Kansas City, they're calling for a wind chill of negative 30.
Nice. They're going to be done playing that game around 11 o'clock at night?
I am beginning to think there might be something to Miami winning this game. If you can get Achane and Mostert and just keep it simple and keep it on the ground, can Kansas City win a ground and pound game?
They don't have McKinnon, if I'm not mistaken. I think McKinnon's season is done.
Correct.
So you've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You've got Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco. We'll have to ask PJ Glasser about Isaiah Pacheco. Maybe there's some profitable prop bets for us out there if we expect a ground and pound game. It'll be cold, but it won't necessarily be windy, will it?
No. Well, it'll be a little windy, yeah. That it will be a factor.
I think that's an interesting game. I do. And anytime it's a weather game, I have to tune in. Just morbid curiosity. I want to see how bad everything looks, feel. People like the freezing sod, the players bundling up, the steam coming off of everybody. I love that.
Well, you grew up in Minnesota. What is it like when you get to those single digits out there?
I remember walking home from the bar once, walking to my car from the bar once, late at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, around there, going to open my car door with my bare fingers and my fingers sticking to my car door. Like you feel your fingers immediately, like the whole Christmas Story bit where he puts his tongue on the pole.
The fingers, I had no idea that could happen.
Didn't have to have wet fingers, just needed my fingers to be exposed, grab my car handle, and they stuck for a second. I'm like, oh my God. The thing where you throw the glass of water in the air and it turns, that's we've done that. That's real. The air is that cold that immediately the water vaporizes. It's not fun. It's not inhabitable. I don't like it at all. I wish that on anybody. Those players are going to be, that's a tough spot for those players. But this is what they get the big bucks for, and it's playoff football, so they're not going to apologize. My favorite will be the hero that shows up without the long sleeves. Always my hero. There'll be somebody, one of the teams or both of the teams will have a handful of players that go out there without the sleeves.
Are you old enough to remember that idiot in Denver with the barrel?
Oh, yeah, the barrel guy.
Yeah, the barrel guy who just looked like he was just wearing a barrel around his pants and shorts and no shirt. And, yeah,
that guy. Is there a Bills fan that is the equivalent to that will show up on Sunday and be like the hero that's out there shirtless the entire game?
Yes. His name is Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Ah, that's right. Fitzy that wasn't that cold of a game when he was shirtless.
He was under the heat warmer, so I don't give him credit for that.
Yeah, we need that. It's going to be great. Can't wait. And tomorrow when we come back, we'll spend more time talking about this weekend's matchups. And we'll be on the air Monday as well, leading up to that Monday night game. Yeah,
holiday show here on Monday because, we're talking about Bill's playoff winner.
What does the world look like?
Yeah, it's we can't take Monday off here. So.
We will we'll check in with ESPN NFL Nation Steelers reporter Brooke Pryor tomorrow afternoon at 4:25. If you missed Chris Mack covering the Steelers for 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh, he joined us in the 3 o'clock hour. We've got that available for you wherever you get your shows. Just search out the Sports Bar. Nice to get a little glimpse into the Steelers. The more I talk about the Steelers, the more I think, man, the Steelers and the Bills, very kind of similar teams through the course of this season with their offensive struggles and the firing of their offensive coordinator. The difference being one, that the Steelers play in a much tougher division than the Bills do, and two, the Bills having Josh Allen, where the Steelers have zero continuity at quarterback.
Yeah, that's a really, really big difference there, and I think ultimately that will be the difference in this game. But Danger, whenever you and I and other experts are in lockstep, I'm always like, okay, wait a second, hold up here, because we're looking at this point spread, and it just seems way too many points if we're sunny and 70 degrees. Much less, okay, we're going to get heavy winds and heavy snow here. 10 points for Buffalo to give up. PJ Glasser will join us on the show. You hear him every day on the BetQL Network as the host of Send It In. Danger, you and I have gone on his show as well. And I just think that a lot of people will be thinking like us, hey, I'm getting 10 points with the Steelers in a bad weather game. That looks like a trap to me, but we'll ask the expert himself tomorrow. PJ Glasser on the show.
Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Wow, what a show today. Maggie Gray from Maggie and Perloff last hour. Chris Mack, as I mentioned, in the 3 o'clock hour. Find the Sports Bar wherever you get your favorite shows. Just search out the Sports Bar. You'll get all of our guest appearances and hourly segments broken down for you there. We appreciate you checking us out on the stream. Our YouTube channel, at The Fan Rochester, also streaming on Twitch, at The Fan Rochester. And, of course, if you're listening locally at 95.7 FM and AM 950, you're the best. We love you and can't do it without our regulars. Thank you for giving us some of your most valuable and precious commodity, your time this afternoon. We hope we get the chance to do it again with you tomorrow afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock. Why? Because you learn things. You learn things like, this is in the public domain. I can play this as long as I can play this to close the show, Gino, and they can't do anything about it. Nope. It's in the public domain. This and Mickey Mouse.
Hey.
So let's do
Let's talk about new uniforms, Mike Danger.
Mickey Mouse, the new host of Hot Uniform Talk in the Sports Bar.
Listen to the Sports Bar.
JR Sport Brief on the way next, and Sabres hockey coming up at 7 o'clock as the apathetic Sabres host the Ottawa Senators. Have a great night. Talk to you tomorrow starting at 3 on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.